Well, welcome to Smoking and Toasting. That was a Tarzan welcome.
That was good. I like it.
I come up with something new. It's 100 episodes.
You know, you are a guitar player in a rock band. I'm sure you've had your
true.
moments behind the mic, right?
I have.
Yeah?
I've done that
Well,
before.
I think
I don't
think
run
you just,
people out of the room generally.
you just
so that's
proved
all right.
us up. That's good. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program and podcast and video cast and Facebook Live and YouTube and whatever else wherever else we happen to be able to creep into. This is Smoking and Toasting. Welcome to the 100th show, Free for All. Woohoo!
Congratulations, guys.
I don't.
Everybody
You guys
else.
have to clap because I don't have our little high-dollar sound effects red sound effects machine.
Also, if we
with
need
us
the sound
today.
of breaking glass, just make it
Yeah,
happen.
right, exactly. So we are at our 100th show, Free for All. We are live downtown Houston in the One Park Place building. We are overlooking the beautiful park of Discovery Green, and almost everybody at the table has cigars lit. And we have a whole bunch of people who are going to be kind of moving in and out of the microphones on the show today, and we're very excited about all of our guests. First, we want to say that we are thrilled at this 100th episode to be brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. And Jeremiah, by the way, from B&B is here and will be on the
yeah,
show.
he's right inside. I'm surprised we can't hear him from here.
Yeah, well, yeah, he doesn't normally need the microphone amplification, but we'll roll with it. So today's going to be a very different kind of show. It's going to be very unstructured. We have a lot of people, as you can see from the table here. We've already got brews and liquor on the table, or liquor at least, and Joel from Eureka Heights is down in the end, so he's brought tasters from Eureka Heights. Oh, there's brews right there from Eureka Heights, right on the table. So we're super excited to just taste, and why don't we just start by having everybody that's here go around, introduce yourselves and what you do, and why you were unlucky enough to get an invite to this little thing and feel compelled to have to be here. Go ahead, Houston.
Yeah, so I'm Houston Ferris. I'm the head distiller at Yellow Rose Distilling. I got to come over here and enjoy the camaraderie and the show because Jason Valentine, our sales director, apparently had someplace else that was more important than where he could be at. So,
But with all due respect to the sales director, though, you're the guy that makes the whiskey.
Oh, yeah. Jason's awesome. He's definitely a lot more fit than I am. But I got to take a little bit of time away from moving big bags of corn around and getting in a really hot warehouse to being out here where it's hot.
It's also hot, yes.
It is also hot. I do want to say I appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy day to smoke cigars and drink with us.
Yes.
Yeah, it's tough.
Tough to do. Christopher.
Hey, guys. My name's Chris. I co-admin the Houston Bourbon Society, and I run a little whiskey festival here in town that you guys were a part of.
A little whiskey festival.
I heard y'all's
Only the
kind,
best one in the U.S. That's all.
I heard y'all's kind words in last week's episode, and I did want to say thank you. You guys were very sweet, but yeah.
Hey, we were there. We know what we saw and tasted. So,
But yeah, that's why I'm here, because you guys like to drink with me, and I enjoy your presence.
well, we appreciate it, Chris. You are. I believe you and Mark Nichols are tied for most appearances on the show. Mark is supposed to be here today, but should he happen to not make it, because he isn't
How
here
many
yet.
has he been on?
I think he's been on 4. You've been on 4. This is your 5th, right?
I believe this. I believe.
No, I think this will be 4.
I think no.
No.
Absolutely not. I believe this is 5th. Yeah.
Yeah, this is 5th. So Mark's been on 4. He'll be on 5 if he's here today. But if he
Okay.
doesn't make it, you will now take the
I paid the valet
undisputed.
to steal his car, so he won't be here. I promise you.
That's awesome. And you should also mention your show. We're fans of your show.
Oh, I keep forgetting I do a show. Whiskey Neat. I have a similar podcast. Airs on 94.1 FM on SportsMap, as well as all your podcast platforms. Whiskey Neat. We do a very similar thing where we get together. We talk spirits. And you've been a guest on the show. I need to get you both on here sooner rather than later.
We'd love to.
I'm
Always.
I'm still operating under the assumption that you waited till I was out of town to get Cruz on the show.
Oh, that was definitely by design for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually Chris and I had been planning that for a long time, just waiting for you to go out of town.
I wish you'd just leave for a little while. Right?
Howard, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm Howard Sandler. I'm with Cafe Cigars, and I figured they needed another cigar rep on their show today. I didn't want Alan to be an orphan up here. also that I wanted you to try this new stick that I introduced you to, the Amendola.
Well, that's the
Maduro
one-
in Connecticut.
That's the one I've lit up here,
Right.
the Connecticut from the
And
Amendola.
I wanted to introduce you to that. It's a new cigar Caffey's making for the Amendola family, and they're going crazy. We're selling them out left and right.
Well, I was going to say I can give you an initial thought on the Connecticut, which is not as light as I was expecting. A little more flavor for Connecticut, which is a lot of people. Connecticut will be the excuse me. They're sort of like first cigar when they're getting into cigars. They don't want to overpower themselves, or if you're having something in the morning with with coffee or something, you don't want to like blow yourself away. But this is I would almost say this is a medium bodied.
It is a medium body Connecticut,
Yeah,
which
very
there
nice.
aren't very many of those on the
That's
market.
right,
That's
yeah.
the reason that we came out with that one.
Really, really enjoying it so far.
Yeah.
Very
I'm actually
nice.
smoking their Maduro right now that he handed
Oh,
me earlier.
and this is also the
Yes.
Amendola. Okay.
Yes, and it's quite nice. This is definitely in the medium, maybe even almost to full range right now, although I'm only this far into it, so we'll see what develops, but it's very nice, very earthy.
Yeah.
Little notes, lots of coffee notes in it.
Right, and these are blends from Jeff Amendola out of North Carolina, and we manufacture his cigars for him. We're very happy to have him in our family, and I also rep him here in Texas.
And is he from a tobacco family? What is his connection
He's
to
been in the
cigars?
tobacco business for quite a long time.
Okay.
He's got a number of blends. We're going to be making all of them for him.
Very nice.
These are just the first two.
Well, good. You're off to a good start, I would say.
Thank you.
Alan Denny is here with us as well. Welcome, Alan.
Nice to be back. I'm the rep for EP Carrillo for Texas, and luckily I'm on vacation this week, so I don't have Lisette and Ernesto going, why are you on a radio show and not out visiting shops and doing your
Yes,
job?
yes. Well-
so why are you visiting a radio show and not doing your job,
This
Howard?
is great advertising for my product, and I was invited, and I couldn't turn down the gracious invitation.
Yeah. And
To
you
sit
can,
next to you, that is.
you can swing by. You can call on McCoy's on your way out because it's right up the street. So
Truth.
So-
McCoy's has been in business a long time. Mike McCoy, that actually owned that shop before, he closed it, opened Mike's Cigar Room up in the Woodlands, and then his son-in-law now owns this shop. But it's a great family business. But
Yeah.
I met y'all. I guess it was Whiskeys of the World a couple of years ago.
I believe it was.
And,
Yes.
and y'all had me on, and then y'all came down to my previous employer that I don't want to mention on the radio. Y'all came down and did a show down there. Chris, were you on that one?
I was on that
I
one.
think so. That was
Absolutely.
one
Yes.
of them. And so I got invited for another
was a-
anniversary show that y'all did where I
that was
called
a,
in.
Yeah, that was a very fun show.
We
by
had
the
a
way.
blast.
We had a
I
really
had
good
absolute
time.
blast. And so when y'all sent me the invitation for this, I couldn't turn it down. So of course
Well-
I love coming and hanging out with y'all guys, and being able to sit and drink and smoke all day sounds terrible.
Yeah. Well, you cigar reps, all you need to do is turn around and you're at work because there's Kenneth Wynn from Casa de Monte Cristo.
Absolutely. So
So-
it's nice to have a retailer in.
Kenneth, yeah, grab one of those mics and say hello.
If I never get this mic away from him.
Howard's wrapped around my leg. And
Yeah.
So I'm Kenneth Wynn. I'm from Casa de Monte Cristo, formerly Serious Cigars, part of the Altadis group. Just retail market. We have a largest humidor in Houston. We're open 7 days a week. So I brought some cigars. I brought a couple of Romeos and Monte Cristos, obviously, and then we brought a store favorite, the Esteban Carrera Hellcat. It's one of the favorites
Nice.
that the guys smoke out here.
Nice.
But for you guys to try, check it out.
Looking
But-
forward to it.
yeah, I met Ian a while back when he came to the shop because he would just kind of come in and then smoke, and then one day he was like, "Hey, let's have a show." And we did that one show, and
Yes, that was a blast.
yeah, that was
Yes.
that was a really good time. So and now I'm here, hanging out, smoking with you guys. And this-
Awesome.
We did the show we did at your place was a very important show because that was our hurricane party show. It was
Oh,
admittedly
yeah, that's right.
after the hurricane,
Yeah.
and you guys were fortunate enough not to have taken any damage,
Yeah.
but half the city was still shut down when we did that show.
Oh, yeah.
and we were able to get to your place and smoke cigars and feel kind of normal for a little while. It was
For a little
it was
bit.
a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Well, thank you for coming in, and you guys do have an incredibly large humidor. I've gotten lost in there several times and enjoyed it thoroughly. So very nice. So Joel's here from Eureka Heights.
Hey, yeah.
Joel, welcome.
You got the special sunny seat.
That's
Yeah,
right. I'm
apologies
realizing
for
that
that.
black is a poor color choice for today. So I'm Joel Swift, co-founder of Eureka Heights. We're celebrating our 2-year anniversary this month, actually. on the 19th, and I brought a couple of pass-arounds for you guys.
Now you have a winning beer from GABF last year, right? Tell me about that.
You mean the gold medal, GABF gold medal winning
think
beer
that
from
may be
last? Is
what
that
he
the one
was-
you're talking about?
I think that may be what he was
Why, yes,
referring to,
Ian.
yeah.
Why, yes, Ian, we do. It's called Buckle Bunny. It's a cream ale, the
Congratulations
best
on that.
cream ale in the country, some would
That
say.
is a fantastic beer.
It really is a great beer, isn't it?
Because your gold medal is enough. You actually need me to tell you that.
Right. Well, we were waiting.
He's like, okay, we got the gold. Now, if we can just
What-
get Ian
the one
to
thing we
come
need.
out and say that it's good, we'll
like-
be okay. Ian,
like
would
Dad's
you mind
approval.
producing your lighter that you always seem to have? I'm sorry, not your lighter, but your opener that you always seem to have on your person. Sure.
Well-
So we can crank open
Doing it,
some of that
It
Eureka
looks like a
Heights.
pocket knife, but I can open beers with
okay.
it.
Do you have an opener with you there?
Yeah,
Joe?
of course.
Okay. All right. Very
What,
good.
am I an
Well,
amateur?
I thought maybe this would be. I thought this would maybe be a good thing to
Let's
start
start the
with.
show with.
Is with Joel pouring out some of his very fine Eureka Heights. Now, how are you guys in terms of, are you available retail yet at this point? And if so, how do we find you?
So we're in bars and restaurants right now. We were self-distributed for the first year. We're Silver Eagle now. We're in about 350 accounts.
Okay.
And we just got a canning line this year.
Nice.
So actually last month, we should be in restaurants. I'm sorry, we should be in grocery stores for off-premise sales in September. So one more month.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
That's
So-
a big move, right?
So I'll be the guy out there that's at the grocery store pouring you little 1 ounce samples and telling you how good the beer is. So come out and visit me.
How many cans will you guys be able to put out with your new canning line?
Running on, well, that's a good question. I don't know. It does about 4 a minute.
I can
So
drink
so
about
as many
4
minutes as you
I-
want to.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it does 40 a minute. It does 40 a minute. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, that's a little
It does
beyond
40 a
me.
minute.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I was just running the numbers in my head.
Give it a try.
But yeah,
So-
listen, I'm always up to try.
So how much time do you want to spend, at the brewery
Yeah.
drinking cans?
Right.
Is really the question.
So
Nice.
while you're pointing that, I wanted to ask you: with your preparing to go into, grocery stores and be at retail, how do you get ready for that from a production standpoint? Is obviously you got to crank out more. That much I get, but how do you know? Like how do you guess what you're gonna sell and what you're gonna need, and is it important to run out? Is that a good strategy?
Well, I guess it depends who you are. For us, no, we don't want to run out. Our distributor was very specific, very vocal about us not getting into market too quickly. That is running out of beer. We want to keep our accounts happy, and so properly sizing for that was we took a lot of direction from Silver Eagle. We did end up buying a 90-barrel fermenter specifically for this purpose, specifically for canning.
Right.
So there was equipment purchase in addition to just the canning line.
So tell us about this beer that you've opened.
So this
for us.
is Nuke the Whales. This was our original barrel-aged beer. This is it's an Imperial Milk Stout on bourbon barrels. It's at about
Can I
12
just point out, this is your kind of show. We're opening with Imperial Milk Stout. This is your kind of
love
show.
that.
my
ABV
friend.
on this?
about 12.8 or 12.
Well, there we go.
I think it's 12.8.
Definitely Ian's kind of show.
That's
Yeah.
how you start the day.
Well, I can tell you on first sip, it's absolutely delicious. It's almost like a mocha latte with just that little tease of Imperial, alcohol burn to it. It's wonderful.
Do you guys mix fresh stout in with it?
We do, yeah.
It's
Yep.
delicious.
Fresh
This
Imperial Milk
is
Stout.
fantastic. It's almost creamy enough. You almost think it's nitro. It's so creamy. It's just amazing.
Now,
And that's with about 1 year of age on it too.
I noticed you brought it to us in a bomber. Is that how it will? show
Bombers
up at
and
retail?
kegs. So
Bombers and kegs.
this is a one-off beer. We will probably brew this recipe again. We have not brewed it since. But yeah. So from batch number 2 is the Moo Moo, which is our Imperial Milk Stout. It's basically our Moo Caliente if you've had that.
I have had
It's
that.
an Imperial
Quite
Milk
good.
Stout with cinnamon and cayenne. So these batches tend to not be regularly in production, depending on barrel availability and kind of what we can do. So the first Imperial Stout release, Nuke the Whale, second Imperial Stout release.
Well, you guys, since you're a smaller brewery and still you're 2 years now, you get to try a lot of different stuff, right? Sometimes
right.
you have room for it. Of course, now I know your Buckle Bunny's probably taking up a bunch of your production, but you get to try all these different things. Like, how does it go through? I'm just curious on this process. Like, does someone just go, I'd like to try this, and it just happens, or do you have a whole process you go through?
Is it a meeting with a whiteboard?
It can be, honestly, especially in the early days when we were just getting off the ground. But now, our head brewer and my co-founder, Casey Motes, is a brilliant brewer. And if you've had Mini Boss, that IPA was just a recipe that he ran with. So we have 2 IPAs. We have Mini Boss and Space Train. Space Train was more of a collaborative effort with the team. Mini Boss was really just him taking the reins and running with it, and I
love
think
the
it
Mini
is
Boss.
a
That is just
Also-
it is
so
a
good
stellar
IPA.
beer.
You're also one of the few breweries that makes the Wicked Awesome, which is a ESB. A lot of
Right.
people just don't make a ESB anymore, and I love that style of beer.
That's probably my favorite
so
beer of yours.
when I
thank
see
you.
I
when I
love
see
that.
that out, I really try to drink whatever place I happen to be at out of that.
Beer nerds love that beer
Yeah, it's
because,
so good.
to your point, there are not a lot of
There's not a
ESBs
lot,
in
yeah.
production, and it's not super fruity. It's 4.5% ABV, so it's super easy to drink.
Easy to drink,
Yeah.
But it's got such good body to it
Yeah,
for
good body.
thank you.
for something that is that light
Thank
in terms
you.
of ABV. It's really good.
Where do you guys get your barrels from?
So Old Forester, they're all over, wherever we can really source them. The one I'm about to pour, for example, Moo Moo, was in Old Forester barrels.
Do you know of any Houston, of any Texas distilleries that have used? It just occurred to me when I thought of the question. I don't know of any beer breweries making beer using Texas distillery barrels, which tend to be a little bit smaller compared to the Kentucky. And I'm curious if there are any. Have you guys ever sold any of your stuff to breweries or?
Yeah, actually, so we've used some bourbon that we've sourced and taken those used barrels and we've offloaded them to other local breweries. But I think there's going to be a growing market for that sometime soon because a lot of companies, us in particular, are moving up into larger size barrels, and that means that within the next year or two,
You're gonna have a lot of
there's gonna be
stuff on your
lot
hands.
available. Yeah.
Houston, while he's getting ready with some of the Moo Moo, why don't you go ahead and pour us a little Yellow Rose here of your choice? I don't know where you want to start, but let's do a little Yellow Rose on this segment as well.
Got it.
Are these any of your more recent batches that you've made?
Actually, I have had a hand in both of the products that I've got in front of me right here. The single malt, which is the one I'm going to pour first, because I know that last time when one of our representatives, when Jason was on the show,
Jason was on.
he didn't have it, and so y'all mentioned a desire to give it a try. And so
I actually
I
enjoyed
brought
the
it
single
along.
malt. I had it at the Whiskey Extravaganza, I think, in March. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys still making or not making anymore?
So actually what we're doing with it now is we are taking everything that has come out of smaller size barrels, because previously we were using
Sorry, I'm passing this
sorry,
on, so there's a
I'm not
lot.
an octopus, so
Go
I
ahead,
can't
you're
really
good.
Is it all coming down to me?
Yeah.
This is Moo Moo. Keep these. Is that Moo Moo?
Nope.
Yes.
Sorry, Houston.
No,
go
it's
ahead.
all right. So our Outlaw Bourbon used to be aged in very small format barrels, and those are expensive, so we wanted to reuse them, and so we used them to age our single malt here. And currently they have been sitting for 2 years, and we've just cleared out all of those barrels. So this product right here is just about 2 years old and used bourbon barrels. I guess I'm going to have some too.
You should.
And
Oh, you handed me the
what
new
we're doing
beer
with it
here.
is we're taking all that stuff that just came out of the barrels, we're going to put them into larger barrels, and then we're going to age that for another additional 2 years. And that means in 2020 we're going to have a 4-year-old single malt coming right out of our distillery that was made 100% grain to glass. And I spent a lot of work on this product when I first started with Yellow Rose. This is where I learned how to distill, actually. So I'm pretty excited to see how it has developed over the past 2 years. But definitely when it hits that 4-year-old mark, it's going to be a pretty interesting product, I think.
Well, this has got such great character to it. How old is the single malt?
So this is actually 2 years old,
2 years. Wow.
and it's aged in our used Outlaw bourbon barrels.
Nice. Well, I like Outlaw. That's kind of a standby in my bar. That's a really good bourbon. But what do you think, Ian?
This has such a butteriness to it.
It really
You know,
does.
Like there's so
Great
much
character.
of that super smooth, buttery like almost butterscotch on the end.
Yeah,
that
and
kind of character.
and it's really kind of geared towards maybe the Scotch drinker who wants to try something American. You know, have some little bit of local pride here, and it doesn't have the aggressive.
Said that with a
peatiness.
nice little American.
Right, right,
America.
right.
Scott sure wants to try a little American.
Right. So it is very grain forward, and it's just going to be a very straightforward.
It's very.
malted barley
It
whiskey.
reminds me of hay. It's got a very, very yellow hay note to it. You know, anytime there aren't many. I know single malt's kind of not the focus in America. Bourbon's like the big focus, but it seems like every time an American distillery does a single malt, it tends to be a real punch in the face, a real robust, intense. Whether I don't know if it's because we heavy char our barrels or what, but it tends to be a whole lot more flavorful or robust compared to a Scotch, which tends to be more honeyed and that sweet kind of light. They tend to go the lighter note.
Chris, do you see American single malt growing? I know it's so bourbon is just such the thing from U.S. distillers, but
Yeah,
but
I
do
mean,
you-
there's
do
a
you
few
see growth in
companies.
this?
There's a few companies who do it, and there's not actually a defined TTP label for American single malt, but it is growing. I mean, Westland does it, and Westland's also one of the few distilleries that I know that uses tap water. They don't even use reverse osmosis filtration, so they just put tap water directly straight from the garden hose directly into their fermentation, and it's a growing category. I mean, Westland just got bought out by Pernod. I always forget them.
Oh,
and,
sorry, Remy.
Remy? Yes, that's
Remy,
right. Remy
right.
Cointreau. That's correct. And it's definitely growing. I mean, Westland in Seattle is doing very well for themselves. And then Stranahan's is big.
I think it's going to be a hard category, though, so this is a very niche product.
Right.
It's definitely going to be something that is somewhat limited in availability.
And its production, I'm sure. Yeah.
Right, right.
It goes fantastic with the cigar.
Wow, no kidding.
Like,
it really
that
does match
really
up.
works well.
Good. Unfortunately, I wouldn't know. I'm not enjoying the cigars, but I am enjoying the smell around me.
I tried.
Yeah,
Justin,
I know.
I tried.
Sorry.
Speaking of enjoying the smell, this Moo Moo is incredible.
Yeah.
I passed it down to Ian, and he thought it was leftovers and dumped it in with his first cup.
I was gonna drink it.
He's his own. He's his own.
I'll still drink it.
At home blending.
Yeah, he's doing his own blending over there, but so it's. I love that. Is it? You said cayenne.
It's
Cayenne.
Cinnamon and cayenne.
flavors,
Anything
yeah.
that's got
And vanilla
cinnamon in
beans.
it, I'm on board.
Yeah.
I just love the nerd friendliness of all of your names. I mean, you mentioned beer nerds, and I'm not really one of them, but I am a nerd, and I love that you have to, you gotta have something to nuke, right?
Yeah,
nuke
well,
the whales, right, and save the whales, nuke the whales. Absolutely.
I just feel like one of the things that is so creative in the craft brewing industry, the spirits industry's a little more formal with the names. But the craft beer industry, the naming has just become one of the most creative things
Just
all
as
over the
fun
place.
as everything
And you
else.
guys really lead the way. I mean, to call a beer Moo Moo, that's amazing
Well,
to me.
thank you. For
And
the
you got
record-
the cow with the Moo Moo on and the on the bottle. It's just fantastic.
For the record, Casey's wife, Lori, hates that name, which is one of the reasons probably why it got named this.
Well, they say what necessity is the mother of invention. And
Yes.
with the beer explosion.
How you gonna stand out?
Well, you ran out of names pretty early on. I mean, so they've had to get creative, and a
They're-
lot of them have been flat out copyright violations of major movies and video games. And
Well, I will tell you, there's times that I'm standing in the beer cooler wondering what I'm going to try, and I'm scanning the shelves, and I'm like, Kung Fu Robot IPA? Yes, get in my basket. I don't know what you'll taste like, and it turned out to be quite good.
Any beer
But,
with a picture of Voltron on it, I'm going to buy it.
Exactly.
is it Clown Shoes? Clown Shoes has like a zombie horseback.
Oh yeah.
Something.
Clown Juice.
Something.
Yeah, they were actually one of the first that I remember to get just absolutely off the charts crazy with the names. Yes.
Joel, what's the one you guys released just recently that had the forever long name?
Thunder Kruger Falkenberg.
Yes.
I'm sorry. One more time.
Thunder Kruger Falkenberg.
Thunder Kruger.
Falconberg.
Falconberg. That's not the
Yeah.
word I heard, by the
Yes,
way.
I know,
heard a
that's
different word.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's so many great breweries just in Houston. So many great breweries in Texas. Same thing with distilleries. We've got some great distilleries here in Houston. Great distilleries all over the state. I'm looking forward to some of these collaborations where the distilleries are taking the beer barrels and aging and vice versa, because I don't want to mention any names because they're not here, but we had one at the social that was phenomenal, and I can just imagine how good some of these stouts would be.
I
2
can
or
mention
3.
their name. I mean, Ingenious. We're all friends here.
Okay, yeah,
and Ingenious Brewing took an HBS Jack Daniel's barrel and finished a stout in it for 3 months, and
that was delicious too.
And it was absolutely phenomenal. My wife and I, we've always been stouts. To me, remind me of Christmas, right?
Yeah.
So in the fall, all I want is a thick, heavy stout that just weigh me into the couch.
Yep.
That's
And-
what this tastes like is Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
The cayenne, the cinnamon, it's absolutely amazing.
And and the big problem you have with stouts is that soy sauce note if it sits too long in the barrel. So I enjoyed the 3 months in the Jack Daniel's barrel, and it was a surprise hit. And Ingenious is, I couldn't support them more. I love the idea. Whether you do something wrong or you do something right with any distillery or brewery, you're trying. And as long as you're continually trying and evolving, then you're moving in the right direction.
All right, I want to take a break. All our segments are going to run long today, and that's fine. But before we do, let's try one more of your Yellow Rose samplers that you brought.
You got it. I'm going to
There's
reach
some
over
cups.
here.
I'll
right
bring
here.
a few more in case you need them.
Yeah, so what I'm going to be pouring next is our flagship product that I know you guys are already a fan of, and I'm dropping stuff. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm haven't had too much to drink. Got to go back to work after this. Yeah, or smoke. Yeah. So our Outlaw Bourbon, we do it a little bit differently. It is 100% Texas-grown corn. It is aged at this moment in this batch. It's about a year old in a 10-gallon barrel. It is, there we go, 1, 2, 3.
I think Howard is saying he's out. Howard, thank you for being
Howard,
here.
thanks again.
And thanks for the cigars. This is wonderful. Yes,
Absolutely.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I would say the thing that I liked immediately about Outlaw the first time that I had it was how, and this may not sound like something that's great, but to me it was how corn forward it was.
Well,
It's
I-
just
I would
such
hope it is corn forward.
Yeah, I mean it's just like wow, you taste that immediately, and it just kind of sets the tone for the whole flavor experience.
So one of the things about 100% mash bill being corn is that it relies very heavily on the barrel for the additional flavors because corn doesn't provide a whole lot of flavor. That's why a lot of other distilleries are adding in rye, wheat. Some are doing quinoa and stuff like that.
I'm sorry, did you say quinoa?
Quinoa,
sorry.
quinoa, yeah. Actually, I probably did. I'll get you
We
another
can
one.
fix- we
just
can
to-
fix that right away.
Pretty sure this
Yeah.
is not.
So
Might be me.
it kind of functions a little bit like a rum in that regard, because sugar doesn't provide a lot of flavor either. It basically is pure sugar going into it. So over the course of a year, we're picking up a lot of smokiness, a lot of spiciness. You can see just in that dark color because we're not allowed to add any colors or flavorings or
Right.
additives or something like that. That is all the barrel influence, picking up a lot of influence. So we are getting a really interesting product. I think this is probably our best release right now. This is batch 18-3, which should have been shipped out over the past couple of weeks, and I'm pretty proud of where it is, and I'm excited to see where we're going.
This is so incredibly interesting. As I take a sip, the heat in this
It's softened
strikes
quite a bit.
It strikes the middle of the flavor, so like right in the middle of the tongue, but it's such a gentle and pretty kind of heat, if that makes any sense. And then the aftertaste doesn't have any heat to it. It just leaves you wanting another sip. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a 92 proof, so
Wow.
it'll hold up if you want to add ice or anything like that. But how we're doing it right now, that's exactly how I do it several times a week.
Is it possible that this is better than the bottle of it that I have in my bar? Is that possible?
Yeah,
or is it just the cigar and the moo and everything else that's that's going around
the
here?
friendship and the,
The
good
friendship,
company
yes,
and all
that's
that.
right.
Yeah, maybe.
The biggest problem
Well,
you have when you
it's
have this
good.
many items on the table is trying to drink fast enough to move on to the next while not drinking too fast all at the same
Yes.
time.
Yeah, how are y'all going to do it the last segment?
Well, we will find out shortly because we are going to take a break. Houston, thank you. These are fantastic, and Joel, I mean, you guys continue to amaze, and I'm as a resident of Houston, it's such an awesome thing to count you guys as a brewery from our hometown.
Well, thank you so much. That means a lot.
You're so innovative and on the edge, and I'm so thrilled we'll be able to find you in grocery stores soon. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. All right, we are going to take a break. Some of the guys may jump in and cool off for a minute because it is a little warm out here. My apologies to those of you sitting in the sun, but we do have some chairs over there, and we'll rotate around and bring some people back. I just want in the next segment. I just want to make sure that I have Chris Hart and Jeremiah Butler from B&B.
That's why I haven't gotten up
on
yet.
the same panel. For
I
the
gotta
next
sit down and
segment,
talk with this guy. I'm
all
so
right.
excited.
It's Smoking and Toasting. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. This is segment number 2 of our big 100th anniversary show. It's the 100th episode, if you can believe it. 100 episodes, and no one has stepped in to make it stop.
No one has stopped.
100.
What are they thinking?
Yeah, we
gotta
are
keep
brought
it
to you by.
100.
We are
Oh,
brought
here
to
we
you
go,
by
here we
B&B
go.
Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. And Jeremiah from B&B is joining us for this segment. We're so excited.
Absolutely.
Hey, tell us about the new bar. What can you tell us?
I really don't know how much. Whatever. I'm just going to talk.
What
and maybe I'll
can-
get in
what
trouble.
can you say?
Better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Okay.
So we do have a new
There's that.
concept opening up across the street from our Foster, like our Foster, our
flagship
founding
location.
location, our flagship.
Primary.
But it used to be a little bar called Caddyshack, and so we acquired it, and it's going to be called B&B Lemon or BB Lemon. Really, really cool. I am not sure exactly how much I can say, but I will tell you that the bar food will be incredible. We have a really, really amazing executive chef. His name is Eric Johnson. The guy is awesome. So
Great guitar player.
Yeah, I'm sure he never gets that at all. Being from Austin, But at any rate, so really, really cool. We're gonna try and kind of keep like just kind of a really nice sort of neighborhood pub feel to it. But it is B&B, so we don't like to do things halfway. So it will definitely,
And you're going to curate the bar?
yes, and this one will probably have. I wouldn't definitely not look for this one to be the same. I guess sort of idea behind my back bar at our Washington location, just from the standpoint that going with that sort of smaller kind of your Irish uncle, his pub
His
feel.
pub, yes.
I think about more like, okay, well, what would Seamus have on top of his refrigerator when I think of like the whiskeys that we're going to look for?
Because your
and things
Irish
like that.
uncle would be named Seamus. There's
Right.
no other name really that he would
Oh,
have.
Seamus.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
even if he's not, I'm sure that's what I would call it.
He would
So,
answer to it. Yes, yeah,
agreed.
absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, so that
Well, that's exciting.
should be rocking sometime September. But we're really excited to kind of get that one going. Obviously, it will be cigar friendly as well. We'll have a really nice outdoor area.
Terrific.
We like to support the smoking and drinking combination
And
for sure.
when
is
did you
rare
say
in
you
Houston,
think you'll
by the
be?
way.
Absolutely.
When did you think you'll be?
I'm just going to leave it kind of vague and say September sometime.
Oh, well, so that's soon.
Yes, yeah.
That's sooner than I would have expected.
Yes.
Well, all right. So we'll be down to do a show.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Well, we'll just saunter across the street.
Well, and not to skip over it, I just want to reiterate: it's very, very rare that a great restaurant in Houston is even able to support the cigar environment.
Well, and what's funny is
Many
you'd be
patios won't let you do it.
shocked at how many people they go, okay, what's up with the cigars? And we're like, well, they're for sale. And they're like, okay, well, where do we smoke them? We're like, on the patio. And they're like,
Yeah,
wait, are you serious?
have
Really?
you
Is that
seen
okay?
Have you seen their upstairs patio?
Yeah, I've been
It
out
is
there and had the pork
beautiful.
belly.
Oh yeah.
And can we talk about how fantastic the cigar service is at
Oh,
B&B? Like,
it's great.
It comes cut to you. They hold a lighter. Like, they literally hold it, tell you to turn. Like, they light your cigar for you, and
Yeah,
it's the most
they're
absurd,
very savvy.
luxurious, amazing thing ever.
Yeah,
Well,
Well,
it's pretty.
it's that one of the things that, and I'll give all credit to Ben on this, and this kind of goes to what you're saying. Is like with the finer restaurants is, to us, it kind of goes hand in hand. The steak, the whiskey selection, the cigar after dinner, the patio, the skyline. The whole idea is to sort of create that vintage environment. The 3 martini lunch kind of vibe.
Sure.
And it's such a dying art.
It's a light lunch, but
Yeah.
I'm more of a
Smart
fan of
qualities
the.
are
I'm a big fan of the 6 whiskey lunch myself.
I just.
Chris, this is the first time you've been on a show. Would you introduce
is.
yourself? Tell us who you're with. and what we
Yeah,
got
Chris
going on?
Morris. I've been a staple of the Houston bar scene for years. Jeremiah is one of my
Well, I can say that as well, but
Right.
Oh, well, you mean in a different way? I'm sorry.
slightly different
We call that a
capacity.
bar fly.
I was just called a drunk. I don't know.
This means I've probably served you many times over the years.
Yeah.
But currently the single malt ambassador for Brown Foreman.
Brown Foreman,
Fantastic,
terrific.
fantastic.
Well, just before we wrap up this
Currently.
conversation about B&B, I just wanted to mention that my wife and I, my business partner and his wife, all went to dinner last weekend at B&B, and I tell you what, the food was amazing. The service was just impeccable. I really, Jeremiah, only had one complaint, and that I'm going to direct it to you since you are
He wasn't there.
the bar manager. No, he was there. I talked to him, but I didn't mention this. You're the guy that's in charge of what's in stock at the bar, and I asked, but apparently there is no Malort.
You don't have Malort at the
B&B.
bar.
That is an interesting conundrum.
Yes.
I assure you, I have plenty of other weird tasting things that I was
Malort is
that I was
special.
given the thumbs up to bring in, but at some point there was a line drawn in the sand between myself and
Yes. Well, for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, go back and check out episode number 99,
Yeah,
where you
this
get to
was-
see the look on my face when I tried Malort. For
You don't
the
like
very
you don't like
first time.
Malort?
This was my.
I'm not
prank
sure
on
that we
him.
can be friends
He had
anymore.
never heard of Malort. I said, "Don't worry about it. I got the whiskey this week."
Yeah, it's the bad guy in the Harry Potter series. I'm 90%.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Hey,
Yes.
No,
No, the House of Malort. You're
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
So-
I thought it was like the juice made from like orphan bones or something.
I think that's also correct. yes.
This is how I realized I was a little bit different. Is my first ever trip to Chicago, and this was 2013. I'd heard the legends of Malort. I knew what it was, and I set out on a mission to find it.
To drink Malort old fashions all night.
Well, not even that. And it's like the most highbrow, lowbrow story ever. Because we'd gone to Grace for dinner. And this is before they had their third Michelin star. Like, they had just opened like 4 months earlier. And it was like the most incredible meal, and it cost way more than I should ever pay for food. But it was completely worth it. And then we like drunkenly walk across the street to this bar called Haymarket. And I see like the bottle on the back bar. I'm like, you, give me a Malort and a half pour of Arctic Panzerwolf, which is a Three Floyds Imperial IPA that's like 100 IBU. Because I'm like, if everything goes south, I just need to wash my mouth out with hops.
With the strongest hops you can find.
I
yes.
literally just need to crush it and like exercise this evil. And like I like psych myself up. I take my shot. I'm like, oh well, this is rather pleasant. And then I like went back to like sipping my
A lot of
IPA.
people enjoy it, right? I mean,
I'm
Malort's
sorry, rather pleasant.
I love Malort.
A lot of people.
So apparently your back was turned. They poured something else in your glass. That's the only thing.
as
I
I've drank at least 4 bottles of Malort just
Oh my
by
God.
myself since that.
As
time.
I mentioned on the show, Malort apparently is not bad. It's
Sounds
challenging
like you're
to appreciate.
praying, by the way. Oh my lord! I mean, I don't know. I've never had it, but I've heard horror
Oh,
stories.
shame.
And then you spend the rest of the night
Find
selling
Malorts.
Malorts.
Leave Malort.
My uncle Seamus Hart, everybody.
Yes. So I'm really excited actually to get the two of you guys, Chris Hart and Jeremiah, because we've had a lot of people, a lot of guests on the show that we've loved, but you guys are probably the nearest and dearest to our hearts. So to have you on the same show is
I've been waiting for this for a
is
very long
super
time.
fun.
He
I've been
became my
waiting-
spirit animal with the whiskey bath message.
I've been waiting for a long time. You know, I feel like every once in a while things will go to your head, and I feel like I'm involved in the whiskey scene, and then I hear Jeremiah on the show say something that I didn't know, and I'm like, that's got to be wrong. Oh,
And we have our
There
first.
we have our first.
We had our
Hoppa!
glass breaking.
Speaking
our
of
glass
wrong.
breaking
And
sound
we have our
effect,
first.
which we were going for, because we don't have the little sound effects box.
Oh,
So
it was the stem that broke.
notice what he
Yeah,
said.
it was
Hey, that
Yeah.
that glass is still usable, by the way.
Notice what he said. He
Hey,
said.
look, a Glencairn. That's
he
how
said-
they're made, by the way.
He said, I hear Jeremiah on the show, and then boom, we got the breaking glass sound, which is exactly where we would have put it had we had the little
That's right,
the little
the
sound
little
effects
sound
box.
effects machine.
So it was perfection. The 100
It
show.
was
Speaking-
very well timed.
Speaking of which,
Living
I don't
up-
The
mean to
production on the
interrupt.
show is amazing.
I don't mean to
Step by
interrupt,
step
but
down.
my drink is actually broken in the fact that I actually don't have one at the
Oh,
moment.
well,
Well,
what is
let-
this?
let's-
What is this thing that Jeremiah brought?
What do we got going on?
I've heard of
yeah,
it.
where are you starting, Jeremiah?
So I'm gonna go ahead because I just can't not talk about this thing yet. So
okay,
this
so
is,
lift that up and show it to the camera.
this is the
yeah.
Garrison Brothers Balmorhea. So for those of you not from Texas that pay attention to the show, Balmorhea is a state park in West Texas that is an absolute oasis. I'm going to kind of steal a little bit from Dan's story about it, but you know, you're driving through West Texas in the middle of sand and desert and pain and heat and despair, and all of a sudden you find this oasis of green trees and water that's just clear as day, and it's amazing. But because the Texas State Parks funding is not exactly amazing, the Garrison Brothers, and they do a lot of stuff. I believe They're working with a specific group, but they did a lot of stuff for the Hurricane Harvey relief that they're going to release. I believe it's at a 5-year mark. But this particular one, called Balmorhea, is helping to raise money to help repair Balmorhea State Park. And then I believe it is Shell, one of the oil. I'm so sorry if I'm promoting the wrong company, but there's a company that stepped in that said they would match. So the $60,000 that they've already raised with the Balmorhea turned into $120,000 instantaneously. It's a
Awesome.
really, really awesome thing for Texas. That would be great in and of itself, but the fact that this bourbon pretty much changed my life last night also makes it even
Last
better.
night,
How do
ladies
you
and
feel
gentlemen.
today?
Distillery only, though, right?
No, actually, this is
No?
now Class B. I talked to Drew yesterday.
Made it happen.
They made it happen. The 750s will show up next year. So what they did with this one, this is a double barrel aged, which, you know, we all seen a few of those. But what's cool about this one is it's twice in new oak. So 4 years
Twice in New Oak.
in a new oak barrel, and then they take it out and they put it right back into a brand new oak barrel.
So they
Which-
put it. They take it once it's been in the first barrel for 4 years.
Yes.
They put it in one that is not 4 years but brand new.
Brand new.
Okay, gotcha.
So
Bourbon Squared.
yes, or as Chris will probably tell
So
the
they're
story,
finishing
it's
it in a new
200% oak.
Nice, I like that.
Not good bad.
that comes from an old wine story of mine. I was a sommelier at Morton's, and I had a supplier come in and they bring me a Chilean Carmenere, which is great, versatile grape, super easy drinking. And I taste it, and it's just like incredibly oaky. And they look at me and they're like, "So this is aged in 200% new French oak." And I'm like, "Hold on a second, I know math and science, so I'm gonna need a little bit of justification."
That is
here."
wrong because
200%.
science.
And like they literally like put it in a brand new French oak barrel for like 9 or 12 months, and then rack it out into like another new French oak barrel for like another 6 months.
So there you go, 200%.
Yeah, and they told me the price, and I was like, "You can get out of my
I'll
bar."
definitely take a
Amazing.
little 200% Balmorhea.
While he's pouring that, I want to talk about the cigar that I just lit up. This is
It's the inch.
This
yeah.
is the Inch by E.P. Carrillo, and Alan Denny laid this on me. This is the smokiest cigar I've ever smoked.
It's
You mean in terms of its output?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, look at this. Is crazy. Watch this.
well, it's exponentially like
It's just crazy
That is a
amounts of
ton
smoke.
of smoke.
the ring gauge is insane.
Well,
Yes.
this is more like a
I love
like a
big ring
nub
gauge
or
cigars,
something like
too.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Like, so I went camping last weekend, and of course I had to take my. I found out, by the way, if you're going to float on the river, a 7x70 is the right size. That will last the entire float.
The entire float. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
That
Wow.
would last 6 months at sea. A 70 ring gauge cigar.
Along with some of that rum that you have.
7x70.
I have an Illusione at the house. That's
Do
like
you ever have a permit for a cigar like that?
I've,
You gotta ask, or at least ask permission.
You do have to rent an extra tube for it.
Maybe
but
forgiveness.
you've got to get a fire permit. You've got to pull a permit with the city of Houston.
I'm waiting for the day I have literally nothing to do. I have an Illusione at the house. It's like 54 by 11.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Alan Denny gave me one of those as the inches, but they were, I think it was an 86 ring gauge. I mean, it
my
was just.
jeez.
And I sat there and I smoked it for
smoking
an
this
hour and a
microphone.
half, and it was an inch down. An inch down.
I love big ring gauges because, you know, like with me, if I'm going to sit down and smoke a cigar, I love to take the time to do it and not try to rush it or anything.
As
like
you have often said,
Right.
you cannot. It's not possible to hurry up and smoke.
You
a
will
cigar.
certainly not enjoy it if you try, that's for sure. And I love a big ring gauge because it really allows you to sit down and enjoy that cigar, and you have nothing else to do in the meantime. We got a nice
take a
little
day
breeze
off,
going on
sure.
there.
Yeah.
I actually once got in a race to smoke a cigar.
Oh,
It-
man.
How
and-
hard did you throw up?
No, oh, it was.
That is an awful idea.
No, it got even worse because this is back in the day, like the high days of the Reddit cigar community, and we used to hang out on Google Hangouts. Just out on everybody just went out on the porch,
AOL
got a cigar and a drink, and like we just hung out on Hangouts. And
So
just,
everybody's
like,
on Google
Is this like-
Hangouts
is
at
this
the
the
same time.
Yeah,
next
we
step
just
after
like-
IRC, like it's just beyond text.
yeah, basically, like we all had webcams, but it was all dark outside, so you couldn't see anybody. So everybody looked good, and
Just these embers lighting up
And-
occasionally.
and I'm on there one night, and we get a little too drunk, and there was
Imagine that.
I
That
know.
seems improbable.
I tell you. And there was this cigar that was kind of a joke in the community at the time called Ron Mexico.
I remember the Ron Mexico. He was a joke as an athlete too, but that's
And so
That was actually my nickname in high school.
we just get in like this
Savage
drunk
Screws.
bravado contest, and we're like, let's do
Sorry,
a
not a fan.
let's do a Ron Mexico race. And so we like both spark up Ron Mexicos, and we're drawing as fast. I smoked that entire cigar in about 25 minutes.
Wow.
So I won
And
the
live
race.
to tell the story.
So I won the race.
Yes, but you lost it
In
live.
reality, no one actually won
Yeah, there's
anything.
no
that
winners.
night.
There's no winners in that.
No.
Well,
not at all.
I had a story I didn't have a chance to share on last week's show that an American has taken back the crown, the cigar smoking championship crown, from a Russian. But in this case, it's the exact opposite. It's about how long you can smoke a cigar and continue to smoke it. And there's different
keep it
regulations.
lit and-
You have to and you have to puff every so often, and but it's about how long you can keep a single cigar going. That's a certain
And
length,
those are
I don't have
especially
the story in
crazy
front of
because
me.
like the official rules are like you get 2 matches. You get one to light it and one to touch up. And
right,
that's
it. Yeah, that's
I
exactly
did
right.
see, speaking of last week's episode, I did see a new beer release you guys were talking about.
Which one? Remind me.
The one out of Belgium, a certain special type of yeast.
Oh yes,
For the beer.
the vagina beer. Yes,
Yes, I believe that may have been it.
yes.
Color me intrigued.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
In
Beer
this
made
heat,
with
though,
the
I'm working on
essence
something
of
for you.
woman. It's basically steeped in women's underwear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
but the
understand
women
why-
are underwear models apparently, as if that somehow makes it better.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't, because there was a chocolate company that did something similar a few years back. I don't understand. I'm all for trying something new. I love the nuke the whale, screw the the ozone or whatever beer you want to call it. That's
Yes.
also cooked with chocolate, chilies, and boots. Like I'm all for innovation, but some stuff. Just because you can do it does not mean you should do it.
That's right.
Yeah,
Just
awful.
because you can does
I
not.
believe
and
Chris and I
sugar,
said
two
that
separate
oftentimes
addresses.
as co-bartenders. Like sometimes there's a point where yes, the technique is like we all know we can, but we should ask ourselves if we should.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
Jeff
Can you
I
imagine
don't mean
walking
to
up
quote
to a
Jeff
bar?
Goldblum in Jurassic Park, but
Can you imagine walking up to a bar and saying, I just want something interesting. Oh, here you go.
Oh, I love
That is a
saying
very,
surprise
very
me.
dangerous.
Well, I know,
I
but then you
love
get
going
then
to
you
the
get
bar.
you don't want that
beer.
for your surprise.
Then you
I
get a
know.
I
Malort
know.
old fashioned.
Right, exactly.
We decided Malort and mayonnaise would make a good drink.
As
right?
wonderful as this conversation is, I want to try this this bourbon.
So the Balmorhea, so when I talked to them last night about this, again, speaking of, should we?
Is this unfiltered? I see a little flake in there. Oops.
It is absolutely tarry, muddy. So in case you want to know, it is awesome on the rocks, and that's about what happens to it.
Wow.
So this is incredibly fatty, oily.
So it's safe to say it's
this
non-chill
sticks-
filtered.
without
This
question.
sticks to the mouth.
This might have been filtered through someone's underwear or a sock. I don't know.
Jesus, Dan Garrison's side.
Or
But
some
out of the middle of Texas out
Please
there.
tell me it was Charlie's. Please tell me it was Charlie's. But no, but guys, so the thing about this one, not only is the story amazing, but when I tried it last night for the first time, it is everything like monstrous that you kind of think out of a release like that. You get every bit of the tannin from the wood. I feel like that there's a lot more like eugenol versus vanillin, so I feel like I got more of the like sort of baking spices as opposed to the vanilla honey caramel that you
Right,
kind of
right.
typically look for. It's just a monster mouthfeel, great long finish. It works incredible with this Maduro. So
Well,
drink
I
up.
don't know if Dan Garrison and I don't know if he'll see this and correct me if I'm wrong.
They're here in town, and I told them to tune in. So hopefully they're watching on their laptop.
Well, and I'm hoping they can correct me if I'm wrong here, but from what I understand, about 4 or 5 years ago, the Garrison brothers changed their production format. They're aging in an actual rickhouse as opposed to the mobile units before. So I tasted the 2018 batch via Wade Woodard, if those of you who know who Wade is, and Wade used to work for Garrison's, and I will tell you that hands down, you talk about something that is evolving over time. A young Texas distillery. I mean, they've been doing it for 10 years.
They're
Just hit
awesome.
their anniversary. They're evolving in an extremely positive way. This is good Texas bourbon.
100%.
I don't have any complaints with it.
I would put this bourbon up against
The finish
any
on
bourbon.
this is so different and so dry and so oaky. It's pretty amazing. I really enjoy that.
when you get that deep, bitter, tannic quality
Yeah,
at the
very
finish.
much, very
Which
much.
like Oscar Maduro, perfect.
Well, I have to say, when one of you two guys comes to me and says, "This is something really special," or
Don't believe it.
in your words, "This was life changing last night," I believe was what you. was what
I'm
you
telling
said.
you,
it's
That's
going to
just
have
happened.
to be one of you two guys because the last thing I told him like that was Malort.
Was Malort? Yes, exactly.
He'll
so
never trust me
I don't
again.
trust
give me
Ian
too
at
much
all.
credit. If I hear him say something on the show, I'm repeating it to people. You know?
I mean,
Can
we be can we be perfectly clear? Malort did change his life, not necessarily.
You
for
know,
the better.
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. It did change my life. All right, so wow, I just have to say, wow, I'm still trying to sort through all the flavors from this.
It's really, really complex. It's really deep. Well, a big part of it is what actually Chris talked about, is that they are aging in actual rick houses now. So as you can imagine, in the climate that we have in Texas, in high where they're aging,
hotter than hell. Yeah.
4 years in that unclimate controlled rick house
With
is
not a lot of variation, but it's just basically the hotter it gets, the deeper in the wood it goes.
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you're getting a lot of wood interaction.
and then you get
tons of
what
wood,
2
yeah.
months of not hot as.
Like-
No, you get 2 days and they're 6 months apart.
yeah, it's 85
But so-
at night, 105 during
and
the
then,
day.
And then so they take this barrel that this whiskey is like penetrated and come out and penetrated and come out, and then they take it out and they put in a brand new one to do the exact
To do
same
the same
process.
thing. Yeah,
over.
this is-
I would
That's,
love. I'll
So-
be honest with you. I'd love to taste a 1 year, a 2 year, because this is about 4 years, right?
yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to taste it every year.
Do a vertical.
Let's talk
of their
because
stuff.
I talked to them about going up there too high to check out some of the stuff that's
Doing it.
still sitting.
Yeah,
Let's see what
yeah.
we can work out.
All right,
I bet
so
you between you and I, they might let us come up there for an
I'm open to
afternoon.
it. I'm open to it.
all right, so Chris, why don't you pour us our next thing that we're going to taste? And while you're doing that, and you can explain to us what it is, and then I have a question I want to pose to both of these guys.
Sure. No, we're not related.
No.
Oddly enough, none of the three of us are related, even though you probably wouldn't believe that.
So, for both of you, it's the evening. You're at home. You're ready to settle in.
This is a
have
bad question.
something.
I know where this is going.
But how? Not what do you choose, but how? What is your process where you begin to decide? Because I'm sure both of you have got very extensive home
How many
bars.
covers did we do at the restaurant that night?
Yeah, exactly.
My process is
Right. How do you start the process? Going, okay, I want something. Now I'm going to figure out what's
within arm's reach?
yeah. So my beautiful wife, who's way out of my league, Molly. I hope you're hearing this.
Hi, Molly.
I could use the brownie
Molly.
points.
It's a man with a future, right there.
Okay, let's clarify that. Way out of his
way.
league.
We can't underline that. Way out of my league. We've worked into our routine that we almost daily. There's a beer involved, and that maybe y'all's fault for that, but
Probably.
just you enjoy something cold every now and again. And with my whiskey, I don't want it cold, so we almost always have an IPA in the mix. Every once in a while, a stout, and we have a shelf. And really, the process for choosing this specific shelf in our house is the shelf of open stuff that we need to get rid of. Like, it's been open a while, let's kill it, let's drink it. So it's not any process of Isla Pete or bourbon or whatever. It's like, hey, this is half full, we've had it for 8 months, let's focus on this so that we can actually move some product out of the building to make room for new stuff.
Make room for something new. I understand this. Yeah.
Our shelf is, right now, I'll tell you that next to my bedside table is a bottle of Redbreast Cask Strength, one of the best Irish whiskeys out there.
Delicious.
You cannot, I mean, the Irish category overall is generally perceived as boring, and there are a few.
We're about to disprove that, by the way.
Well,
but,
and
yeah.
I was going to say that there are a few
I got
Irish.
about 5 shots of Bushmills 3 days a week that would disagree with that.
Sure.
I am never boring with Irish whiskey meat. Oh wait, that's not what you meant.
Not anymore, you don't.
Overall, but there are a few Irish distilleries. Connemara, who does
Absolutely.
really interesting peated items. Bushmills, both white label and red, I actually thought were amazingly great for $30.
Absolutely.
And Slane recently, and that's not to. They are a sponsor of Whiskey Neat, but I will tell you that hands down, I love the idea of doing a 3 cask finished, like just to really try to liven up that Irish category,
Yeah.
and that's where whiskey is right now. You either change to fit the ever evolving category, or you die off and
Right.
no one cares about you.
Well, or you're like a Balvenie, which is just you're so set in your craft that you're the
oh,
one.
they perfected it long ago.
Yeah,
They're
you're
good.
the one island on the ocean that doesn't
I
have
think
to
they're
change.
gonna be all right.
Yeah,
You're
they're good. They're good. No need to
Yeah,
change
but
that.
when you said
What about you,
Irish, I would
Jeremiah?
say Slane and Teeling are probably the 2 most exciting.
Tealing's doing great, and Redbreast.
Yeah.
I preach the Redbreast name
So
daily.
for my process, there's
Yeah.
actually like not too far away because again, I have also a wife that's way out of my league.
I I hate that she's definitely here, so she definitely heard that. I've got to text my wife and say, "Hey, listen, I talked about you."
Yeah, for sure. But so mine is kind of more like so. Obviously, like like Chris, I get the option. Well, both Chris's, I get the option to taste a lot of cool stuff. So I have a lot of cool toys to play with. For me, sometimes it comes down to when I'm looking at the bottles I have. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to drink these because I want to have them at a later date. Because this is just a normal Thursday night. I got off of work.
Right.
I'm gonna light up, like a really basic, cigar and just kind of okay. And then kind of one place that I do differ from Chris is that I also pick based on if it's like late at night and I'm sitting on the front porch, like I'm going to pick a whiskey that I am going to put ice in. Mostly because my palate is angry and aggressive. And so I actually like a little bit of dilution and cool because when you're drinking, 142 proof, bourbon, it kind of takes a little of the off. And but for me, it's more I look at what bottles am I okay with replacing versus, man, I really don't want to replace my Signet.
That definitely does come up. Yeah. It does come up when you're like, that bottle is more than I want to waste right now.
If we drink the last of these 2 bottles, that's going to be a big boy trip to Spec. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and hit up this Bullet barrel proof right here, and we're going to be okay.
By the way.
Absolutely.
Which I can tell you, I totally understand that because I have a bottle of Jose Cuervo Reserva de la Familia in my bar, and the first 9/10 of it went pretty fast, but that last 10th, oh man, I look at it every once in a while.
Yeah,
I look at it every once in a while. I go, oh, this would be so good, but then it's going to be gone, and then I'll have to go and spend the money to replace. Maybe I'll have a different one.
You remember that phase in your collecting career in which you loved the bottle so much you kept the empty bottle?
Oh, man,
and
absolutely.
I remember it, but not well.
And then you get to the point where you could build a whole new house out of empty bottles.
Yeah.
And especially when they started releasing really cool bottles like the Willet Pot Still. And,
or, Chris, to put it another way, you go through that phase and then you get married. And then everything changes. In terms of keeping empty bottles.
Let's ask Molly about that.
Yeah, I had to build shelving in the garage and hope that she didn't go out there too often.
She did.
When I moved in with my wife, when we started getting
a whole room.
really serious, it took me more space and more bags to move like my beer and my whiskey into the house than I did like my clothes.
Yeah,
I can attest that Chris and Sam had an entire their guest room. Their guests were liquor bottles. Like, I'm telling you, it was a whole room. I saw it painted. It's got red. It's amazing.
I really don't know why you're using the past tense.
Sorry, yes, exactly.
If I
it's only gotten more out of hand.
And you let me use the guest room, I'm barring the door.
Yes.
There's like a super comfortable couch in there. You're welcome anytime. For the love of God, please come drink my whiskey.
Yeah, Chris, I want to tell you a quick story.
Pet the dog.
Ian and I and Ian's wife, Tiffany, were at Reserve 101 doing the planning meeting for this show. And the bartender there introduced us to the whiskey that I think we're about to sample here.
Male or female?
And, female. Lots of tattoos.
Sarah.
Shocking.
Okay.
No,
Sarah.
that's not- it wasn't Sarah. It was, give me a
Troxel?
minute.
Is that who you were thinking? Troxel? Sarah
I'll
Troxel?
think of her name in a minute.
All right. But we actually have not stopped talking about it. And both Ian and I were talking before the show. We both bought a bottle this week.
Yeah, we did.
But I'm excited to be drinking some of yours. Where did Slane come from? I'm familiar with Slane Castle in Ireland. Is there a connection?
They're tied
That's
together?
literally where it comes from.
Okay.
So this is a partnership between Brown-Forman and the Cunningham family, who have owned the castle since the 1700s. I think it was 1750 or no, 1780, somewhere in there, that the Cunninghams actually took over the castle itself. And, of course, it's become famous for its rock concerts. Like, every band you can ever name is played there. And several years back, Alex and his father were like, well, we grow a ton of this barley. Can we make about 2,000 tons of barley on the estate surrounding the castle every year? So they were like, well, we drink enough whiskey and we grow enough barley. What if we actually just, like, kind of streamline the process and cut out all 17 of the middlemen? And so they set out and they actually turned the castle itself kind of into the distillery. The distilling equipment is actually housed in buildings dating back to the 1750s. So
Wow.
they had to very carefully deconstruct these buildings, put the stills in, and then actually very, very carefully put them back. So it's incredibly exciting. I like to tell people Slane Castle is the cooling tower for the distillery.
Okay.
All the thermal energy goes into the walls of Slane Castle and heats the castle.
And
It's like cheating.
do they still do the rock shows there?
Yeah.
So it
Nice.
hasn't changed anything about what happens on the ground.
Not at all.
What happens in the
Now
castle.
they've got something to drink for the show.
Exactly.
Sarah Garcia, by the way, Frank Fernandez shouted out, said it was Sarah Garcia that
That's what I said.
I didn't hear you. Most of the time I
And
don't,
big,
by the
big,
way.
Big shout out
Fair.
to Frank.
Yeah,
Well-
Frank Fernandez, man.
He's got a good thing going on.
Well,
El
let me tell you.
Tesoro. Shout out to El Tesoro. Their
Yeah.
tequila was a massive hit at the event.
New Frank.
Yes, new Frank. I love old Frank.
We all.
I
I'm
love
just gonna start
old
calling
Frank.
Frank Squared.
Whiskey Frank number 2.
Frank
Shout out to
K.
Krockenberger for the yellow lapel pins.
Heck yeah, man. Frank
Always a shout to
Krockenberger.
Krockenberger.
Dude, like,
I just wanna say-
did you see last time when he like crashed the show?
No.
Yeah, we were doing the show at B&B and like
Frank just showed up?
But both of them. So they just showed up.
Really?
It's like,
What episode?
this was like what? Like
I will
4 or
watch
5
that.
again?
But they
Oh,
didn't show up empty-handed, did they? They probably-
Never. They
Yeah,
never do.
so-
No, Maker's
so
cast
that's
strength for
Well,
everyone.
let's talk about that. But find out what episode it was because I watched it. 95.
There you go.
95.
Shout out to the wife.
I'll watch it tonight.
Way out of my league.
Yeah, you were so right out of your league. So
Thank
right.
you, Dr. Butler.
Maker's Mark is doing like a freaking incredible job with their private select program right now, and we just did a barrel pick with them, and I couldn't be more. We get 2 barrels of it. It's phenomenal, and for them to show up on the show and bring it in, they did a thing at the event, a classroom where they actually tasted through the different. They finished cask strength Maker's Mark for 6 weeks with a bunch of different oak staves. So you could do French oak stave, mocha, all these different staves. And he brought in distillate at different stages of that finishing process, and it was
For those of you who know, the staves are the actual wooden pieces that compose
correct.
the actual.
Correct. They're toasted in different
that's what
ways.
you put
Yeah.
together for the
barrel.
barrels.
Well,
and they're phenomenal.
Hey, I want to
Incredible.
interrupt for a second because he wasn't here when I talked about it. But Alan, tell me about the cigar that I'm smoking. This is the Inch, and this is the smokiest
it's named
cigar.
after Alan, by the way.
Yeah, so it's
The Inch. This
So
is the
that-
smokiest cigar I've ever picked up.
so
Hedwig and the
output.
Smoky Inch.
Yes.
yeah. So the inch I gave y'all, that is actually something completely new from Ernesto. That is the Inch Ring Master. So little backstory: Ernesto is the godfather of big ring gauge cigars. Back 25 years ago, before anyone had ever thought about doing something bigger than a 60, Ernesto said, "I got you," and he. So
Hold my beer.
Yeah, hold my beer. I got
You
this.
want to see a cigar?
So-
I'll show you a cigar.
Thank you, Texas.
So, big ring gauge cigars, notoriously from some of the companies out there, they blend a Robusto, Corona, whatever, and then they just start adding more wrapper and filling it full of filler.
Right.
That completely changes the cigar.
Yes.
From what they immediately wanted the Robusto to taste like, a 6x60, 7x70, 8x80 doesn't taste the same anymore. Ernesto blends that cigar at a 64 ring gauge. And then he can go down a few sizes or up a few sizes, but it tastes the same. And so no one else blends a cigar for a big ring gauge the same way he does. That is the Inch Ring Master. Ernesto, he's the ring master of big ring gauge
It's brilliant.
cigars. It's a Nicaraguan Puro. It uses a Nicaraguan Habano wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, Nicaraguan filler. It's based, I say based, it's a loose word, but our Encore, which is probably going to be number 1, at least in the top 5 this coming year, is a Nicaraguan Puro using Nicaraguan Habano, the same, very similar wrapper, but different binder, different fillers. That cigar has a little more spice, where the Encore is kind of a medium-bodied, not a lot of spice, just a great medium-bodied cigar. That is full body. That's got some spice
So
to
my
it. that is
question:
just-
when he says it's the smokiest cigar, would that extra smoke layer be? Like, is that more the binder? Is that more the blend? Because it's
that-
blended
it-
for the
that's
gauge?
actually the smoke of that.
That's amazing.
With,
Look at that.
with having more. Yeah, it does.
Every puff is a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah,
more
we
tobacco.
get it.
burn.
You vape.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's the vegan of cigars. I mean, it's
Listen, Chad, I don't need your toasted oatmeal cookie like smoke in my face. Oh, it's not smoke.
Hey, when Chris stands at a urinal, he stands next to another guy.
and there we go. So no, what
I
was
like
gonna say-
Lafroig.
we talk about. Oh, I remember that meme. The price to quality index. One factor that's never really been
I do like
discussed, which
Lafroig.
is an interesting topic because this came up, is the length of time for your buck. Right? I mean,
right.
Buck
you're
eight.
talking about how much is that cigar?
So that cigar in the Robusto size, the one you're smoking, is $12.50.
$12 and you're talking about a 2-hour smoke.
That is probably closer to a 3-hour cigar.
So you,
Yeah, there you
It's
go.
almost done.
Well,
How about
I
two
don't know about
segments?
that, guys.
in fairness, this
challenge accepted.
In fairness, this segment has gone on for a very long time.
Yeah.
True story.
So I just wanted to say, though, before we end this segment, apparently I need some of the slain.
Yeah, you've got a hole in your cup, buddy.
Yes,
It has that
falling out
effect
the
on
bottom.
people.
Yes.
Your cup broke.
This is.
This is one of the more interesting Irish whiskeys I've ever had.
It really is. And
It's incredibly sweet.
and
It's
Chris,
awesome.
It's
the,
really, really
the
cool.
big story we haven't even talked about. What's retail for this bottle?
Retail, and that's about $28.
20. Are you
Incredible.
It's
kidding me?
amazing.
Wow.
That means it's comparable in price to quality to Jameson, the number one selling Irish whiskey in the world. I mean,
Yeah, and it's very uniquely kind of placed, right? Because
Jameson.
if you talk historically about Irish whiskey, it's such a crazy category. Like in 1975, there were 2 distilleries, and they were owned by the same company.
Right.
Like that's subject to international monopoly laws by modern standards 4
Right.
years later.
1609.
And
1609.
it's undergoing such this crazy revival, and I think Slane, like being a young brand and knowing the things that are coming out, because they're distilling their own single malt whiskey, their own single pot still whiskey, which is that quintessential Irish style. And the thing that makes Slane really unique for me, and not necessarily for a lot of people, but the grain whiskey that we use, because every Irish whiskey brand outside of Redbreast and like Green Spot, but all the other ones that we know, Jameson, Slane, Bushmills, Powers, they're all what we call a blended whiskey. So they've got neutral grain spirit blended into them. And it makes it lighter, it makes it more accessible on top of the triple distillation. So it's a very light body, very easy drink. But where Slane is very unique is our grain whiskey is distilled at the distillery from 100% barley. So the mash bill on the grain whiskey matches the mash bill that's going into the big powerful whiskey to it. So you have this
Right.
sort of continuity of flavor going on top, and then you bring in our triple cask method, which for those that don't know, we use some virgin oak, so virgin American oak on there. There's some seasoned American oak, which is our Jack Daniel's barrels, and then also some Oloroso sherry. What's making it really unique is that virgin oak is very similar to what we use in Woodford double oak. So it's a very heavy toast,
Which is so good.
with a medium char to it. So it's accentuating all those kind of vanilla notes that you're getting from like the Oloroso sherry, and it's giving you body. So you get this very full-bodied Irish whiskey, but it still has that quote-unquote smoothness that you kind of look for, just that ultimate drinkability. What I tell people is like I damn near challenge anybody to find me a better blended Irish whiskey for an Irish coffee.
I will tell you,
Because I haven't had one.
I've had this quite a few times since that first time over at 101, and I've had it on ice. I've had it neat. I don't think I've ever had it without a cigar, and it's fantastic no matter what.
Yeah.
whiskey
Yeah,
sniff quality.
Why is it down on that end of the
Whiskey
table?
sniff
Well,
quality.
okay, so whiskey sniff. We want to talk about that, but this segment has been, I think, the longest in show history, and that's fine. We are going to take a break, however, because I'm done with my cigar.
And
So,
I definitely want to spend one more talking with Chris
oh,
about
absolutely.
some cool stuff.
We want you
like-
guys to hang, and I want
I want to have an argument with him. I think
Yeah,
that'd be
yeah,
the.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
I
can't
feel like that
wait.
would be
I
more
can't
well
wait.
received.
Can we talk about the last time me and Jeremiah had a public argument?
Oof.
I won very handily. It
Oh
was
well,
fantastic.
okay. We'll have to hear that story as well.
glorious
Plus,
style.
I want
I'm
to
up
talk.
for a
To,
three-way.
I want to talk tequila. I know Brent from Patron is here, so we want to
Oh, yes.
have her come in and talk tequila with us just a little
awesome.
bit.
Let's do
so
7
there's
segments
There's
today.
so much that we want to get to, and the 100th show is just there really is no time limit on the 100th show. It really is just about how much of this stuff we drink and how many cigars.
Joe
we want.
Rogan level, 4 hours.
Yeah.
Let's do
Yeah,
it,
that's
guys.
Let's go.
This is the
Let's do
this
it,
is
guys.
the end of segment 2 out of 72 segments.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll be back on our way towards 72. It's Smoking and Toasting, and thank you for joining us for the big celebration, the free-for-all, show number 100.
Cheers.
Welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting, segment number 98. 90. Yeah, close to it. My name's Cruz. My partner here is Ian Barry, and we have guests all over the place for show number 100. It's our 100th show free for all, so we're going very long on today's show, and we haven't even begun to do the tastings. I just wanted to mention before we got too much further in the show, when we were talking about various members of the panel here who had scored way out of their league. I'm in that category as well, and my way out of my league wife is actually here today, and I looked up during the last segment, and she was double-fisted. So that was just like the perfect smoking and toasting moment for me. Show number 100 is in place and awesome. So before we go too much further into the next segment, we have a special guest to introduce. Bryn, pick up the mic, introduce yourselves, and tell us what you do for Patron.
Hello, I'm Bryn. I work with Patron Tequila here in Houston. I'm a local account manager, and I work on-premise in sales, so bars and restaurants.
Now, my wife and I met you at Ritual. We were at a dinner there, which was a Patron dinner, and there was wonderful tequila flowing all night, as well as great food. Ritual is fantastic. So that's the type of stuff that you do, the events that you organize and are a part of, correct?
Yeah, I do tequila dinners, things of that nature, and then help bars and restaurants with menus, cocktail creation, and sales in general.
Patron's got to come up with a better name for what you do, because account manager doesn't say it all.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't.
Like, you got to be like, what was Frank for a long time? He was a luxury specialist. That's amazing. You got to come up with a better name.
I'll work on it.
We need something like that. I love it. So you have brought with you something
Tequila Maiden.
Yeah, well, something that I just want to step over here and pick this up and show it to the camera, because this is the Patron Extra Añejo.
That is our Extra Añejo.
Now,
yes.
you guys are best known. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're best known for your Patron Silver. That's
the bread and butter.
That's your bread and butter of the company. It's your big
That's
seller.
like 60% of all tequila sold on Earth is Patron Silver.
Probably.
It makes amazing
It's ridiculous.
margaritas. It's just such a great go-to, and for so many people, I think it became that sort of step up when they were beginning to explore tequila, and maybe they'd had some of the brands that had been around for a while, and somebody said to them, "Hey, try this," and they were like, "Oh wow, that was like a step up," and maybe a step for a lot of people into the world of the more premium and ultra premium tequilas, and I would imagine. What you guys, obviously you have Patron at B&B.
Absolutely.
The hugest part of your sales, even as sophisticated as your clientele is, I'm still guessing the hugest part of your sales is the silver, right?
It is. It's the heart of the tequila. I mean, that's the tequila. Yes.
And
what I would say is, like, when you talk about the step up, it is. It's that when you go into a nicer place for the first time, or like you're sort of like evolving your own palate. Like Patron Silver is kind of one of those. It's like the Glenlivet or Balvenie 12, Glenfiddich 12. It's the first one. You're like, hey, just put this on the rocks with a squeeze of lime and a splash of soda. You don't have to make a margarita. You don't have to shoot it. And then even myself, fairly recently, like some of the more evolved Patron stuff is stuff that I've even been learning about, and it's really cool. Like I'm not gonna fib. Like I was a little resistant to the agave, as she knows. And it's kind of one of those things where a lot of categories are having these sort of resurgences, and like aged agave spirits are definitely something that like people are asking for.
Not to use a totally nerdy quote here, but resistance is futile.
Resistance is futile.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
it is.
and all these Patrons come from the same distillate, right? The same basic distillate, and then they're aged differently, or is there a different process for some of them?
In this line, so this one here, the Extra Añejo, yes, those are all going to be Patron Silver based, and then all aged in the same 5 barrel types. It's just how long they're aged.
So I love that. It's really interesting to try it when you try the silver, and then you try the Añejo, and you try the Extra Añejo, and seeing where it goes. That's a pretty amazing process.
Yeah. So remind us then of the age between the Blanco and the Reposado and the Añejo and the Extra Añejo. What are the age requirements for each one?
Yeah, so silver is obviously unaged.
Right.
A Reposado is going to be anywhere from 2 months on to right before that 1 year, 12-month mark. An Añejo is going to be 12 years up until right before 3 years, and anything older than 3 years is an Extra Añejo.
So tequila does not necessarily have to age as long to get to what you might refer to as ultra premium status.
Absolutely
as
not.
some other spirits. Is that correct?
That's correct. And, with tequila and agave spirits in general, it'll definitely reach a point once you've aged for too long that you're going to lose that agave flavor profile.
Right.
And it's going to sip a lot more similarly to, just a an aged whiskey or something else that's just been aged. You lose what makes tequila what it is.
Well, that's kind of the beautiful part about tequila and agave spirits, just in general, is like the nuance of the raw product, right?
Right. And rum is similar to that as well. Like a straight out of the tank silver rum can have a lot of flavor nuances to it, and then just a little bit of aging, 2 years, 5 years, can really make a huge difference in terms of the spirit.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just kind of like the misconception, like spirits in general. Like the older it is, the better it is, and like we've been very blessed to have people who've had an amazing array of spirits across our career. And I think all of us agree, like, the older spirits are not necessarily the best. I've had 40-year-old scotches that were not very good. And I think everybody here can kind of agree to that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's like the old adage, and I think a lot of us at some point were in wine, where very rarely is the oldest, most expensive bottle of wine on a wine list the best bottle. Right. And what I find, especially in like the contemporary spirit world that is actually happening, is you have these categories that are getting these resurgences, but I don't think it's an accident. I think, like, especially like one of the things that like I would talk about with what she talked about and you asked, with using the same distillate through a range, is, I mean, that's like the classic Scotch profile. We're okay. Right. If I want to make 3,000 bottles of whiskey, and I want 1,000 to be 12 years old, 1,000 to be 15 years old, and 1,000 of them to be 18 years old, all I have to do is make 3,000 bottles worth of distillate. And then the age process does everything else. And especially in a category like, like an agave spirit, agave obviously behaves different in the wood than something else, or different mash bills, etc. But like, what I think is really cool is actually enjoying the way that like the wood affects a different distillate from something that I'm traditionally used to.
Honestly, I've had some tequilas, Siempre Azul comes to mind, that I actually enjoyed their Blanco more than I enjoyed their Añejo. It just had, the flavor profile was just more interesting and more pure. Yeah.
Well, you taste so much of the land, of the climate in agave. I worked at Pastry Wharf for 2.5 years, and so having agave in my face all the time, and you get to see an agave plant grown in the shade or on this side of the mountain, or these barrels aged way down here and this barrel aged way up here. Big differences between them.
So in that way, it's more like the grapes with terroir being such a huge factor in agave. Correct?
I think any specialized spirit is kind of the same way. Obviously, I focus on single malt Scotch, and the first thing I ever tell people when they're brand new to Scotch is every single thing you taste in a single malt Scotch is 3 ingredients. It's barley, water, and yeast. And tequila is a lot the same way. Like it's agave, it's water, it's yeast. We don't get varied mash bills like we do in American bourbon. We don't get to alter our flavor profile by...
You can't say 36% agave and 36% aloe vera or whatever.
Well, not in good
whatever other
good tequila.
Plant that looks like
good
an
tequila,
agave.
it's 100% agave.
That sounds like it could be really good, but you wouldn't be able to sell it as a tequila, right?
You could drink it and use it as sunburn.
I was just Cancun, I'm coming for you.
Well, that's the thing
I got a business
I like about
plan.
tequila that talks about the sourcing of the agave. You don't get to add corn or other things to it, but you can blend espadín with tobala and any number of other mezcals and build this complexity to it. And I think that's a really fantastic part of agave spirits in general, is you open yourself to so much, and just like Houston was talking about, like so many of them are grown in different conditions, and some only grow in the shade, and you have your highlands and your lowlands, so it does kind of accentuate that sort of idea of terroir.
And the question, Bryn, I would ask you, as a bunch of whiskey nerds sitting around this table, what can we talk about with the barrels that Patron ages in? Like do y'all source? Do you have your own specific place?
So, about what?
About finishing, Chris Hart throws it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so with our core line, so everyone knows Patron Silver. So this is the last addition to that line, the first one in 25 years that we've done as a company. And like I said, we age in those 5 different barrels. So we have new American oak, we have used American oak, so used bourbon barrels that we're using for that. We have French Allier, French Limousine, and then new Hungarian oak as well. So we're using all 5 of those different barrels, which is super unique to Patron's house style and how we make our aged spirits.
That's awesome.
Brent, I wanted to ask you while we're pouring and passing the extra añejo here, when I'm at Specs and I'm standing in front of the cabinet that they keep locked, so I'm not allowed to get into it.
Yeah.
I really feel like it's so I won't stick my finger in all the bottles.
I think so. They are, they've got. I think it's the cabinet that when they open the cabinet, you hear, But there's a bottle of Patron in there that is pretty pricey. What am I looking at, and where did that come from, and what is it about that that's special and that would make it worth that kind of a premium? Because what is the extra añejo? Like, what does that retail for?
Right around 80.
So that's around 80. So that's what you would expect for an ultra premium extra añejo.
Don't worry, Mark. Just get that tequila.
Yeah. So what? But what
No
am I
one's
looking at
judging.
when I look at that one that has an extra digit in it?
It could be a number of different bottles. We have our Grand line. So our Grand
Right.
Patron line has the platinum, which is gonna, that's our silver in that line. And then we have our Burdeos, and we have our Tahona only style, which is the same as our Roca line, and that one's going to be our Piedra. And so those three bottles are going to run, for anywhere from about 175 up until almost 500
Right.
retail. So it could be one of those. We also have our Lalique series, which is going to be a lot higher end.
Right.
And that's the crystal, as well as the juice inside. But
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I poured all the tequilas here. Does anyone have salt or lime?
No,
please no.
Just stop it right now.
please no.
Just stop it right
No, that's
now.
just a joke. No salt or limes are hurting this.
And if anybody out there is looking, we need a new co-host for Smoking and Toasting.
no training wheels. This is
Yeah.
amazing. I've just done research
Yeah.
on this. That means I drank some,
Mm-hmm.
and it is amazingly smooth. Like
Wow.
this is unbelievable.
Absolutely.
I just on the nose.
That's just what the
This
nose
a
is crazy.
Wonderful,
It's
wonderful
like
experience.
perfume floral, but still has like you can smell all the age on it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
there's
love that
so
the-
many things going on in this. It almost has a little fruitiness to
Like a
it.
dry
But I want to
Yeah.
as a guy who
Wow.
has spent a few minutes here and there
Wow.
with Mike that from Pacey, we're like please I would like an agave. Talk to me about what you smell when you smell this.
Anything that is aged that loses the agave smell, I'm really leary of.
Sure.
I really want that big agave.
Right, you wanna
get
get
it. You
come
get
out
it here for sure.
Like I can't describe it as a smell so much as a color. It's green. There's like a greenness to it that's there.
I know
and
exactly what you mean.
And it's delicious.
Oh,
And
it
it's
100%
really-
is. Like one of my biggest problems
I can't
with
stop
many
drinking
extra añejo tequilas is like they wind up just tasting like whiskey. And if I wanted to drink that, I would just drink whiskey.
well, that's a good point, and you're absolutely right. This still is a wonderful agave spirit, and that's what
Exactly.
makes it so extra special. But the smoothness and the almost butteriness,
I was
which
just
is not.
can we talk about the
it's-
feel of this on your tongue for
yeah,
a second?
it's
This
not
is
something you
super
ascribe to a
thick
tequila,
and beautiful.
Really. Yeah, this is. Well, I will tell
Are
you.
you on the
Brett,
clock? Because we might have just like done.
Well, I just want to say, unlike most of the guys here, my introduction to premium distilled spirits was tequila. I grew into then enjoying rums and then enjoying whiskeys. Most of these guys were whiskey guys to start with, but I still have the softest spot ever for tequila, and I find that I am maybe more discerning about tequila than I am about some of the other spirits. Some of the other spirits I go, yeah, wow, yes, I can tell you that that's really good, and I can tell you maybe is it better than this, better than that. But with tequila, man, I'm pickier, and this is fantastic. It really, really is.
I agree with you. And, Patron as a company and as a brand gets a little, opinion one way or the other with just our silver and, the representation of what
Paul
it is.
Mitchell.
It's a good, the silver was definitely a good introduction into ultra premium, and then we have the other options. So the Ritual Tequila Dinner, when we had the Roca line, that more artisanal 100% Tahona
And
style.
We had some of the Roca at the dinner that I
Yes,
mentioned, and
yep.
it was quite good.
Absolutely.
It was really
Well, that's
different
not-
sort of a tequila
Get,
experience. I
like
thought.
not like one that I just recently, like maybe like 6 months ago or 5 months ago, really began to like get in is the XO Cafe. Like an agave coffee spirit.
It doesn't seem like they would go together, but they
It's
do.
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yep.
Like, she fought me to the nail, and I said yes, and then now I'm on like my third bottle. It's insane.
It kind of sounds like something you would come up with when you're really drunk in Mexico, right? I'm going to take this, I'm going to add a bunch of coffee to it.
Well, it's like you think you're at a resort. It's like the Mexican Blue Blazer. Like they're making the coffee, with the thing where they pour from 1 to 1. But this, it's more complex, and like we put it on our
Absolutely.
after dinner menu, and dude, the Exo Cafe is like
It's a great digestif. And
it's a beautiful thing. Like
I'm picking up. I'm back to this again. I'm picking up.
yeah, you
these
should be. This is
great-
phenomenal. By the
These
way.
great pepper undertones. Now, on a lot of, especially on a lot of the aged tequilas, you get pepper pretty big.
Yes.
This is actually an undertone. It's a flavor that didn't jump out at me at first, but the more I sip this, it's just so good overall and so incredibly smooth.
Absolutely. And, a lot of that could have to do with that could be the style of where we begin with making our tequila. So we use both a roller mill and the Tahona Stone method for our core line. So we do 50% of the roller mill style, so that more new school way of crushing the agave. And then the other 50% is going to be with that Tahona only, like that old school artisanal way of creating tequila. And so different flavor profiles definitely come from the different methods of crushing the agave.
Is Patron? Where are you in terms of like worldwide? Like, are you the
Domination?
number 1 tequila company? Or are you the number 5? Where do you guys stand in terms of total sales worldwide?
Worldwide, I couldn't tell you. In the United States,
Yeah.
in the ultra premium category, we definitely make up a majority of sales.
No, Cruz, I wasn't kidding. Like Patron represents like 60% of tequila sales in the United States.
One thing-
So you're talking about tequila sales, period, not just
And
Forget Wells. I mean, all
with
of
the
it. Like,
silver,
it's nuts.
Patron silver, just as a clear spirit base, is a huge percentage of
Well,
just. white
I think
spirit.
one thing that's important to
Well, just
point.
think about before you. I'm sorry, but dive bars, high-end bars, shit
You're right.
bars, sports bars. They all have a
you
bottle
can,
of
you
Patron
can find a
Silver
Patron
sitting there.
Silver at all of them. No,
Worst
you're right.
case scenario, when
That's
you
the
walk
goal.
in, you say, "I want a shot of tequila. Like, what do you want? What do you have? You know what? Never mind. I'll just take a Patron Silver. No
Right.
wheels. I'm good."
No
Right.
training wheels.
Right.
Well,
You-
one thing that I think is important to discuss,
reliable.
and Houston obviously being more experienced in agave than myself can correct me if I'm wrong, but as kind of spirits, nerds, as we love to call ourselves, we're always searching for like the next biggest, the next greatest, the next kind of micro-produced mezcal. But if you've ever had a premium tequila in your life, you probably owe it to Patron to that being in the U.S.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you may be right about that.
Really broke the ice for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and to consider that tequila could be good. Tequila could be
like I said,
more than
first time. Like, hey, just put it on ice with a splash of soda and a lime. You don't have to shoot it. You don't have to make a margarita out of it. You can
Right.
enjoy it.
Patron helped to show people that there is something outside of that mixto tequila that you had a bad night on in college. They definitely helped to pave the way for all, agave spirits in general.
And I just want to say to everyone, because very often I'll have people over to the house and I'll break out some premium tequila and go, "Oh, you have to try this. It's really amazing." And it's so often you get this, "Oh, yeah, I don't really do tequila. I have a story from when I was in college." Look, I went to college. I have lots of tequila
Everyone has a
stories.
tequila story.
But this is not
Hey, I'm
the
on the-
same kind of story. So wait, hold on. There's a
Jeremiah's
phone
making
call
a phone
coming
call.
in.
This is not the kind of tequila that you have an incident about.
No, I would hope not.
Check it out.
No, this is not the kind of tequila that you have those stories about. Or if you do, I want to hear those stories.
I would
because
like to hear
No,
those.
these
stories.
these stories are deeper and darker and more mysterious.
Yes, and much more interesting.
It's like
Much
one of the
more-
two most maligned spirits in the world. Everybody has a tequila story and a gin story.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I have both of those.
I don't know.
They were
Since my wife
entertaining.
is here, I probably can't tell her gin story. And it's strangely enough, it would probably equate to tequila because it was in Mexico.
Well, that's,
Tune in
hear
for
it.
segment 456,
Yes,
where we
that's right.
talk
We're-
about
we're gonna be looking forward to
Kayla's
that.
gin story.
Talk about my wife and her boxing.
well, one of the things that I do love about this tequila conversation is the fact that it isn't always about age, as we said. That there are things sometimes in the younger tequilas that are things that can be appreciated sometimes even more than the more age. And I wanted to ask Houston about that. When you're doing the single malt, where aging has been such a classic thing, What are the challenges in trying to get a single malt to be something that people are going to react to and want to buy when it is 2 years old, when it is 3 years old or 5 years old?
You can't screw up at any stage of the process.
Right. That makes sense.
That's important.
It totally makes sense. Yeah.
You can't get good out unless you put good in. And so that means that you have to be really strict on all of your things, all the way down from where's your grain coming from, what's the quality of that grain,
How much sugar does that grain produce?
Right. What's the quality of your fermentation process? Are you being sanitary? Are you getting bacteria in there? And then if your bourbon wasn't very good and you're going to use your bourbon to make your bourbon barrels to make your single malt, well, that's going to translate all the way through
too. Sure. Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of variables in the aging process for sure.
Do you guys climate control your rick house, or
No.
is it? That's.
How much of the process do you already project before you even put your bourbon into a barrel and age it? How much of that do you project? Okay, it's going to taste like this from this particular barrel.
Well, we do a whole bunch of testing beforehand.
Okay.
And what that means is that we are going to do very small scale test batches beforehand.
So you chip off a little bit of wood into your whiskey? And
No, actually,
no, I'm sorry, being silly.
about a year ago, we did some test batches for the next generation
wooden tea bag.
bourbons that we were going to be producing, and we actually aged them for 30 days, aged them very loosely for 30 days in 1 gallon barrels. Little tiny cute things that I like want to take home and have my 6-year-old play with because they're beautiful and they're really cute.
Drink responsibly.
And we just we took a whole bunch of samples out of those and we passed them around to people, Chris Hart being one of them, and we got their opinions on them, and then we just kind of took that as a sign, well, we should probably go in this general direction.
Right.
And then when you are in the process of distilling, of course you're going to taste your product along the way. And like I said, good in, good out.
Yeah, that
and
makes all the difference.
And so our White Dog has been tasting very beautifully lately.
Can I say, speaking of that,
Can we
white
get some of
dog,
that white dog?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm just gonna be the guy that's like tapping his foot over here, like, dude, white dog.
Yeah.
I just want to point out the real MVP of the show right now.
Yes.
So
Like when we talk about distill it, I'm looking right at which camera. I don't know which camera I look at.
You're on both.
But
Doesn't
what
matter.
what this is the essence of everything we talk about on any spirit aspect of this show. Clear,
Right.
neutral, distilled spirit becomes everything you see in front of you. So
Right.
this is a beautiful experience.
So
So-
this is actually a product that is not currently available from Yellow Rose.
Okay.
It is a new mash bill altogether. It is a bourbon mash bill. Can't call this bourbon yet because it has not been aged in brand new charred oak containers.
This is
So
just
minimum
pure
of 2
distillate,
years?
basically.
Right. This is
Completely
straight out
clear.
the still as of, I believe, 2 weeks ago.
We would technically call this, if you made it at your house, moonshine.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
because
We-
Yellow Rose is a company, it's White Dog.
Yellow
Which you
Rose is very
cannot do.
diligent in paying our taxes, so don't do this at
Absolutely.
home.
I can attest to that.
So, yes, absolutely. Yeah, sorry.
Mark, get up in
I
there
was
and get
closing
some.
that
Don't
up
worry
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
Mark,
wants
don't
more?
be
Who
shy.
wants more? All right,
if
so
you
this
see a
is
big bearded
yeah.
man get on camera, don't worry. It's
I want
Mark
everybody-
Nichols. He's a draft master. We're going to talk to him in a second.
Of
We
course,
wanna-
I do want everybody to be a little bit careful with this. It is at about 135 proof.
Oh,
That's
that's
it?
all. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So this is straight off
And
of the
it's
still.
still incredibly smooth.
And
Either that or my tongue is dead.
so the reason why I wanted to bring this and show this off is I'm really proud of it. I did not come up with a recipe for Outlaw Bourbon. Outlaw Bourbon has been something that's been a part of Yellow Rose since the very beginning, and I haven't been with Yellow Rose since the very beginning. But we wanted to create a new bourbon recipe, and we started making this this year, and just starting putting it into barrels. It
This is a new mash bill.
New mash bill. It is 65% Texas-grown yellow corn, 65% Texas-grown rye, and or sorry, not 65. That doesn't make sense. That's already 130%.
I was not going to
25
question
You
your
guys are
math.
going up.
20
You guys go beyond 100%.
200% oak. We're
Right.
good.
For a second, I
200%
thought
corn.
So if you're wondering at home, we are actually tasting these spirits. It's very obvious at this
obviously.
point.
For a second, I thought this was a Fort Minor song. The percentages,
130% corn in the mash bill.
I'm so gang fired. 25% Texas-grown rye and 10% Texas-grown malted barley. All of that is processed for us here in Texas, up in the Fort Worth area by a company called Tex Malt. They are great supporters of our brand, and a lot of other Texas brands are sourcing through them too. Rye is hard to find in Texas. It does not grow well in Texas, but there's a variety that does grow well in the South, and so we have the Texas craft brewers to thank for getting that available to us. And the malted barley, the same thing. Malted barley, all these Texas breweries wanted Texas-grown barley, and they definitely want it malted locally, so we have access to that now, too.
This is the most Texas damn thing I've ever smelled. It literally smells like elote.
Yeah,
It's like corn, and it's creamy.
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah, go
delicious.
For those of you that don't
Like,
live in
it's-
Texas, if you've never been outside of a fiesta, this is what it smells like.
The elotes cart.
This is,
Oh,
there's
that
a
sounds like-
little
'cause
tiny
this is
thing.
pretty
It's a little
amazing.
cart that has this little umbrella over it,
This
and
is
it's
so
the best corn
outstanding
you've ever
to
had.
try this. To try it's whiskey before it's whiskey.
Oh,
so
it's,
to
it's
speak.
whiskey, yeah.
But it's so interesting
So
because you
good.
can taste how young this is. Like you can taste that this is
Zero.
fresh.
It's
right?
about as young as it gets, actually.
Yeah.
But it's
On the bottle, it would say
but you
0
can
if you had to
kind
put
of-
the age. Yes.
right. You can kind of taste the potential in it as well. And
Aged
the fact
14 midnights.
There is no way that camera will see.
I mean, this
from there,
isn't
but
any older
the
than-
leg. It's gone. It is. This is
Yeah.
very, very, very much grain alcohol.
What
and
was
its
the
best
percentage
form.
you said it was?
65% Texas-grown corn, 25%
Amazing.
Texas
and
rye,
it's,
10%.
And it's easy to drink just like this.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about the process of how you guys have you been to there to see the process of them processing the grains, like the corn and the rye and all that?
I've not. Our production manager, Jason Velasquez,
Do they
he
with
has.
the grains? Do they floor it? Do they just like hot malt it? Like
I can't say for certain, actually.
Sure. I mean, it's
I
fantastic.
won't misspeak.
Can we talk about how sexy hot malting sounds?
Oh my God. Yes.
So this product, though, is going to be released alongside of our Outlaw Bourbon. Outlaw Bourbon will always be part of our portfolio.
so you guys are gonna put out a white dog?
No.
Oh.
I wish. I would love to. I would love to, but you can taste this if you come out to our distillery every Saturday. I try to be there, and
This
I try to
is
have this coming off the
beautiful.
still,
It's
and you can dip your
interesting.
finger
This is
in.
a beautiful
Incredibly
product.
cool.
But
This
it's
is
going
awesome.
to be aged for a minimum of 2 years, and that means it's going to be released in 2020. 2020 is going to be our 10-year anniversary, and so we'll have a lot of really cool things coming out that same year that are all grain to glass that will probably be available only at the distillery. So
Nice.
this is the kind of the future of Yellow Rose.
But if you do want to taste Yellow Rose and not go to the distillery, you could go to B&B Butchers. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Happy hour 3 to 6. It's awesome.
Also, you can get Chef Tommy Bacon at B&B Butchers.
Oh my
Also
God.
on the happy hour
Amazing.
menu.
Yeah, and by the way,
Shameless
I got to
plug.
try what is it? The lamb bacon.
The lamb bacon might be the most
Holy
amazing thing on earth.
Oh my God! I thought Chef Tommy's was rocking my
No,
world.
no, no. The
I
lamb
haven't tried
bacon.
this. Do tell.
The lamb bacon. So we get Colorado lamb, what they call a skirt or breast. So on the lamb, pardon me for vegans watching, but it's right here on the animal, and we get it. We salt cure it, then we brine it, and then we cold smoke it at about 171 degrees for about 10 hours. And
No
then-
wonder.
Well, but here's the thing. After that, it goes on the actual grill, so it gets direct smoke. And then we throw it in the salamander to finish it, crisp it up before it goes to the table. German mustard. It's like for me,
Oh.
like you can have most of the rest of B&B's menu. Like I'm telling you right now, like, the lamb bacon.
Shameless B&B plug right now is Restaurant Weeks.
Yes.
You can go to B&B right now and for $45 get a 3-course meal.
For dinner. It is incredible.
Yeah.
It really is. I had it. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. But the lamb bacon was a new experience, and I won't recover anytime
So
soon.
I'm going to throw out a weird shameless plug right now. Is that I just tasted for the first time 2 days ago. I can't say when we're going to put it on the menu, but I just tasted the A5 Japanese Wagyu beef bacon.
Oh my God!
It will be just.
You're a terrible person.
I will tell you, this will be like in a very expensive plate of bacon, but it absolutely like. I can never eat regular bacon again without being jaded. Like, be like, oh, here's
And
the-
that's where you and me differ.
Here's the regular B&B bacon, and I'm gonna eat it and be like, yeah, I guess thanks.
Have you, for those of you that are tuning in, have you ever tasted bacon? Because
Bacon's
I
good.
mean,
Bacon's good.
Yeah. So Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, like, I love the fact that we get to taste this white dog. Like it's really, really cool. One of the things that I firmly believe, and our bar staff is trained this way. It's a very important thing. Stories are incredibly important in spirits.
I agree.
And so the fact that, like, we've gotten to hear Bryn's story and the story of this, like for me, like that's a big part when you have a place and you have obviously a wide array of spirits and you're obviously charging premium prices. It's very important that people know why. Like,
Right. And it's one of the things we've always loved about B&B is that your staff knows the stories. They know why.
It's incredibly
not just
important.
what, but why. And it's a big deal.
I would like to do one more thing if we have a second. This is about as young as you can taste a whiskey, as far as I can tell.
And yet it still tastes like whiskey.
Can we try some of that 18-year-old that you brought?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Let's go for 1 to 18 years.
The spectrum.
1 to 18. Okay. So I tell you what. Why don't you pour that in? We're gonna go very quickly to the next segment, and so pour that in the break. We'll open the next segment with it. But before we wrap this one up, I just wanted to ask Bryn one more tequila question, and it's about this thing that we're reading everywhere about the shortage of agave and how that is a threat to premium tequila everywhere. Truth, legend, and if true, what is Patron doing about it for your own production?
Yeah, so I can't say it's not true. Patron's not necessarily going to be affected by a shortage in agave. We have numerous families that we work with that we source our agave from, so we pay them a premium every single year, whether agave prices are up or down. They're guaranteed to be making a premium, and so we get our first pick of agave from these families.
It's good to be the king.
Yes.
They did it and they did it right. They do it well, and so we don't grow our own agave. So if there's ever a bad year for agave, we our field, it's not like it's damaged and nothing that we can pull from. We have these families that we utilize their production. For smaller distilleries, I can't say the same necessarily, but
should we expect to see that impact tequila prices?
Possibly, across the board maybe, but also with just the tequila boom in general, tequila prices are fluctuating as is.
So my question to follow his would be, like, you think with the kind of new boom in agave spirits, like, I'm assuming that's contributing to the shortage because there wasn't a shortage before.
Well, I think the big thing to talk about, and both of these guys will obviously know better than I will, is just the sheer amount of time it takes to produce an agave worthy of distillation.
7 years.
7 years is usually going to be.
Well, and to actually, like,
that's just to grow the plant.
To grow
I was
the
going to
plant.
say, and then the process beyond that, though.
That's from seed to harvest at that point.
Because
Right?
if I'm not mistaken, you can't. You're not allowed to machine harvest the pina, so it has to be people going out and cutting the agaves down.
A humidor.
I'm sure there are people who are machine harvesting for sure.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of a lack of oversight, I suppose, for a lot of this. But
Is this where I should cover the mic and go, Don Julio?
I can't speak to certain brands, and I wouldn't want to. But the market as a whole is very cyclical.
Sure.
When the prices are high, you get a bunch of people bandwagoning on top of that, thinking I'm going to make a whole bunch of money on agave.
Field.
Right, and then when their agave is ready, the prices are down at the bottom and they're selling out because now they're not getting into the market.
So not ready to make through the next wave.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And this whole thing happens every 10, 12 years. There'll be
Sure.
some shortage in agave. And no one's really felt the effect of it.
Well, I'd just like
at
to
this point.
apologize for my part in the agave shortage, and I would promise to do better, but I'm really not sure if I can say that.
You're not really sorry.
I'm not really
I know,
sorry.
You're not really sorry.
All right, we are.
Sorry. I'm not sorry.
We are
You
going
don't mean
to
it.
take a break because we got lots of thunder rolling in. So I want to make sure we get at least one more good segment because we have a lot.
We got to talk about
a lot of stuff to taste.
brandy.
Yes.
We got to talk about brandy.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll be right back. It's Smoking, and we'll be back quickly this time. Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's Smoking and Toasting. It's our 100th episode. So this has been, I would say, wait,
Hour number
hold
8.
on. Jeremiah just dropped a cigar.
We're good.
You all right? All right.
Everything's okay.
All right. We're
It was
okay.
almost a moment there.
So, Ian, I would say this has definitely been the most fun episode so far.
Oh,
Would you say?
absolutely, absolutely. And you know what I love too is sometimes we get people that just drop by, and here comes Frank. We're gonna put a chair back. Can we
Yeah,
fit a
we'll
chair
work on
back
a
in
chair
that
right
corner
now.
there? All right, awesome. So we're gonna have him coming in just a moment here.
Well, as we were wrapping up the last
One of our
segment-
two favorite Franks.
Yes.
One of our two favorite.
One of
There's
our
only
two favorite
that
Franks.
exist in my world.
He actually
That's it.
replaced
You're 100%
Frank.
correct.
Frank
One of them
actually
is not
replaced
Oscar Mayer.
Frank.
Yes, and that happens.
I had a grandpa
sometimes in
named
the
Frank. He was
Well, there was no
significant.
way to replace Frank, but with Frank.
Yes.
He did though.
Daddy Frank played the guitar and ate French bread or something like that.
His
I
his
forget.
only way to move up in the world is to replace yet another Frank.
Jeremiah, can you grab that lighter for you? Right.
So right before the last segment ended, I believe we were pouring some 18-year. You want to talk
Glendronach?
about this?
Oh,
Yeah, so this is the
Glendronach.
this is the 18-year Glendronach, and
So we had the very young, the 0-year, the white dog, and now we're going to do the.
Now, it
comparison
is
the
important to
18.
say that white dog is definitely a different mash bill. That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
corn
Of
versus
course,
a
yes, of
barley. Sorry.
no, of course, and just like I talked about, like when you're dealing with Scotch against American whiskey, in American whiskey, you get to vary your mash bill. You can add wheat, you can add rye, you can add malted barley, you can affect your flavor in any number of ways. In being a single malt Scotch, all we have is barley, water, and yeast. That's the
Single
entire.
grain, single distillery.
Yeah, it's literally the only thing that we can produce and call it a single malt. Whether you're Glendronach or Benriach or Lagavulin
Balvenie.
or Balvenie, Aberfeldy, like any of the
Glenfiddich.
200 distilleries that produce a single malt whiskey, we only get water, barley, and yeast. One thing that I really love about Glendronach, being the second oldest licensed distillery in Scotland, dating all the way back to 1826. But what we do is we were sort of the originators of sherry cask aging.
Okay.
And so that gives the whiskey sort of this very distinct kind of sweetness to it. And the 18 has been one of my favorite whiskeys for years and years. It's 100% Oloroso sherry barrel. So you've got these sort of Christmas fruit notes, this fig, this fruit cake, a little bit of like a chocolate note.
Those baked fruit notes.
Yeah, baked fruit.
I just want to tell you after tasting this 18, I love you.
I love you too.
There's
This is delicious.
but talking
There's
about
a lot of love to go around. I think,
but
it's
even
okay.
talking about like integrity.
I need an adult. I need an adult.
But even talking about like integrity of sourcing, like we talked about with Houston like 6 minutes ago, and he talks about, the fact that everything they're doing is Texas grown. 100% of our barley is Scottish grown, which is getting less and less common. So many people are getting their malts from commercial houses, and it just streamlines the process. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we do is 100% Scottish barley, local farms whenever possible. It's non-chill filtered. It's natural color. It's everything that we want a whiskey to be. It's an artisan, purist whiskey in the purest sense. And the story that I really love to tell about this company in particular is this 18. If we do a little bit of math, we're in 2018 now. So that would tell you if you subtract 18 years, this whiskey was distilled in.
Wait, hold on, I got it. Hold on, wait. 2000.
1846.
9/11.
Thank God we were in an even number.
Yes.
1826. It says on the bottom. 1826.
But the thing about it is, this whiskey, this distillery was closed from 1996 to 2002.
So how did this happen?
So this
mysterious
particular bottle in 2016 is actually 20-year-old whiskey. And what happened was we were so dedicated to keeping our core age statements and kind of rebelling against that American model of limited releases that we just blended 20-year-old whiskey to taste like our 18. So I tell people, you buy 18, you get 2 free. Like, where are you going to get a deal like that in the whiskey world?
Well,
This
it
is so good.
It is fantastic. And by the way, I am polishing off an Esteban Carreras Chupacabra that Kenneth Wynn from Casa de
Solid.
Monte Cristo brought, and this is one of the better cigar and whiskey pairings I've had in a very long time.
That Chupacabra is a monster. It's
It's
all leather
Yes.
and chocolate, and it just really pairs off like
just
those
marries perfectly with
those
this 18.
Oloroso notes, that like nuttiness, like
Yeah.
I just kind of want to
Speaking of
compliment the
Chupacabra.
entire cigar availability today.
Oh yeah,
We got to play around with a lot. I think I'm on my third.
Well, we have.
I might not.
I
have
think
even
we've
smoked
lost all
them
of our
down.
cigar guests so far, but they dropped a lot on us.
Man.
Well, and we have good friends in the cigar industry.
so
So
nice.
Well, and I think what's cool is that even people brought other ones. You know, like I brought
Yes.
I brought an Oscar Cuban. I brought
Yes.
a Padron 64 for Chris. Like, I mean, it. That's one thing I love about this show is, and one thing that Chris talked about that I think is really important is that, you know, cigar smokers are people too.
yes.
Like it's not like.
But even more than cigar smokers, I think it's really important to introduce the new man to the panel who just showed up with a pretty wicked shirt, Mr. Frank Fernandez. one of my favorite people in the. Get him.
Yeah, I was about to hand him the mic.
Okay.
You missed my joke earlier, but I said, speaking of Chupacabra.
Oh yeah.
Totally missed that on that joke right there. Thanks for having
Well,
me, guys.
thank
Frank,
you. For,
this is
thank
your
you.
Frank.
first time officially on the show. Now we have you mixing drinks at the Whiskey Social, actually.
Yeah.
And you sort of crashed the show on episode
And
95.
yes, and you crashed
I
the
did.
show
I was-
slightly.
The bar in 2017 was better. I'm just saying.
What was that?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Get this guy out of the show,
First of
please.
all, how dare you?
I'm sorry. Those were fantastic cocktails.
Thank you. Thank you.
They were.
I'm glad
You
I
know-
got here, I think, in the
So
nick of
Chris
time.
Chris was one of the bartenders at the 2017 Houston Whiskey Social, and he was amazing. He put on a show mixing.
I don't want to say bartender. He was a complete artist. I mean,
Yeah,
what-
absolutely.
we
Amazing.
provided
I'm
him
just gonna ask you guys
spirits.
to all stop blowing his head up, please.
We provided him spirits from all the way back to World War
Bacardi
II.
Legacy,
He was making
Heaven Hill Bartender of the Year, blah blah blah. Shut
yeah.
up.
No,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he was making period accurate pieces, cocktails being provided to everybody free. You know, it was all included, and you could taste a cocktail made with ingredients from 80 years ago.
Yeah.
And no one in this city deserved to be behind that bar more than this man right
It
here.
was
No,
amazing.
and I will tell you all, like, to piggyback on what Mr. Hart just said, when you talk about period accurate, like, I remember actually working with Chris, and, you know, craft cocktails are craft cocktails, and, like, I know what I know, and I know spirits, and this guy would be like, no, that drink's not right because it doesn't have this. And even to the extent of him going back to the Jerry Thomas books and figuring out what an actual measure was. Oh, one measure of this, two measures of that. Like, absolutely went and
You
did
have
the
to have it just
homework
right.
and actually created the cocktails accurately, timeline-wise. For an aficionado, it's amazing. Like
That
that's
is amazing.
Thank you, Chris.
Well,
like,
I mean,
that.
for me, it all just came down to kind of integrity and interpreting what people are really saying. Like, when you look at cocktail books from the 1880s, 1890s, you know, the 1910s, like, what are they trying to convey? And Chris gave us a really great opportunity. Like, we were mixing a Bobby Burns, very classic Scotch cocktail. It's a Scotch Manhattan with a little bit of Benedictine, but we're getting to do it with a vermouth that's been in production since the 1800s. We had a 10-year blended bottle of Scotch bottled in the 1940s. We had a 1940s bottle of Benedictine to add that complexity to it. And there's really something about being able to taste like just a piece of history.
That's the kind of detail, by the way, that you guys at the Houston Whiskey Social put into that event.
Well,
and it's amazing.
That's just. I was just about to say. This is why when Ian and I talk about this being the best of these events, and I'm not just trying to embarrass Chris Hart here, but when
You can't
when I
embarrass
say
Chris Hart.
you can't, okay, good. When we say it's the best of these events that we've ever been to, and we've been to a lot of these kind of events. I mean, this is why it's
Pretty
that
sure
kind of
everyone on
attention.
this panel met at events.
Yeah, it's this kind of attention to detail that make that event so outstanding, and this year was just as amazing.
Outstanding and outrageous.
I definitely didn't do it alone. You know, through the last few years, meeting people like Chris Morris and Frank Fernandez, and these are guys that were nerds before I even knew what a nerd was. I mean, I was still drinking Jack and Cokes. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Before I even knew
Not that there's
anything
anything wrong
about
with
the
that.
That's how
spirits
everyone
world.
cuts their teeth.
I mean,
Either
everyone
Jack
cuts their
or
teeth.
Jim.
Sure,
Either one.
Sure.
Speaking of Frank Fernandez, are you now known as the luxury specialist?
Yeah.
Because I love that title. That's the
Luxury
greatest
specialist
title
in
ever.
Houston. Very confusing for a lot of people, but I basically take care of all the higher end spirits in the Beam Suntory portfolio. previous Frank.
Frank
K?
Yeah.
I gotta give the guy credit, man. The OG Frank.
Yeah, but the only way that you could have replaced Frank was with a Frank.
No,
and
they,
so
they
you
actually
are
fought
now
to
on
the death.
team, bro.
They actually put them in a ring together and had them fight shirtless.
You should see how many
turns
emails I
out
get.
I saw the bartender boxing. That was not true.
With people
shirtless
confused.
Frank fighting just to
that's
decide
the catch.
So I was watching ESPN The Ocho the other day, and
Hey, was it required that they sprayed them with the
I
garden
saw
hose
a bout
the whole
of chess
time,
boxing.
or was that just
And I like to think that's how it went down. Was
I'm
a
pretty sure
chess
that's it.
boxing match between
I'm pretty
Frank
sure
and Frank.
That's it.
Well, I'm pretty big chested. So.
Speaking
Yeah.
of-
I mean,
Frank Fernandez won.
unfortunately,
We are sitting with the luxury specialist. The other Frank's dead. We don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, what happened to him? We don't, long
Frank's
live
probably in Kentucky enjoying his life right now.
Frank is dead.
At the
Long live
distillery.
Frank. Yeah.
But yeah,
This might be a good time as we're talking about events to mention that our first Smoking and Toasting event open to the public is going to be taking place on October the 10th. It's a Wednesday, and it's going to be taking place in the upstairs patio area at B&B Butchers on Washington Ave.
I've heard of that.
It is going to be amazing.
It is called the Whiskey Sniff. Now, the Whiskey Sniff needs a little explanation, so I'm going to turn to my friend Ian, who coined the phrase Whiskey Sniff, to explain it to us once again.
So whiskey sniff is a phrase that me and my brother came up with because for years now, as I've been exploring different whiskeys and cigars and things like that, I came up with a method where I go sit on my patio and I start a cigar, and I usually get a half an inch into it ish, and really get the flavor of that cigar in my palate, and then I go in and I look at my whiskey bottles and I just pop the tops and smell them and sniff them and find out which flavor profiles really feel like they're going to go with it. This is how, remember when you asked earlier, okay, when you're sitting at home, how do you decide what to drink?
What's your process? Yeah.
This is my process. I start a cigar, I get the flavor on my palate, I go sniff my whiskey. And the one...
So you open up the tops of the bottles and
I
sniff
just
the
pop
bottle.
the top.
I have a story about sniffing whiskey.
This is not that kind of story, sir.
Oh, it will not be. This is public
story
knowledge.
keeps my pants on.
Sniffing whiskey.
Anyway,
again, that was my nickname in high school.
So anyway, this has been my process for years, and when I mentioned this process to Cruz, he goes, "Oh, well, this is obviously an event because we have to make this happen." So what we're going to do is we're going to have some cigars available. You will choose your cigar, what strength, what flavor profile you like. Then we'll have some whiskeys available as well, and
With
you'll
the
be
tops off.
With the tops off, and you'll be able to order in a glass. You'll be able to get your nose into this. And
Obviously, this will all be
And this is
according to TABC laws.
Of course,
and everything
of
will be
course.
legal and responsible.
yes.
Drink
and-
responsibly.
And this is a method that works like 99% of the time. It doesn't work with Malort, but it works with all.
I disagree.
of the
Nothing.
If you've
works
ever had a
with
cigar
Malort.
and a Malort, it's okay. It's okay.
Absolutely
it really is.
not, Jeremiah.
I'm going to take your word for that.
The only cigar
A
that goes with
Malorta Nudo is fantastic.
Malort.
I was thinking Malort Hemingway daiquiris.
Try Malort and mayonnaise. It's amazing.
But
Anyway.
that's what the event is going to be. There's going to be.
That sounds like a Chris Frankel shot.
It does.
I have
Chicken wing
stories about
bombs!
that I don't even want to tell.
Chicken
you.
wing bombs.
Don't actually try that.
I
am
remember
taking
paying
an
the
Uber
bar
home, by
tab
the way.
from
Yes,
trips.
right.
I highly recommend try the Malort mayonnaise
No, this
shot.
is-
Just go
so
for it.
anyway, the bottom line is we decided that this is going to be our first event. Is going to be called the Whiskey Sniff. We're going to be having it at B&B Butchers upstairs on the patio. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have a great time. October 10th, you said.
October 10th. It
Wednesday.
will be.
There-
It'll
there-
be a
and-
ticketed event. Tickets will be available
and,
for this.
and we'll figure like we're gonna get all that available, and then there will be some really cool intended pairings. Like I think we're gonna get Alec Bradley involved.
Fantastic.
I'm specifically looking to get a bunch of the Nika Puro Diamond Cut.
Oh, you're the man.
Well, I think that it's really cool when you're gonna do an event like this to have like if you're gonna have cigars, like let's just not have like this, the industry standards.
Right.
And so we already carry the Nika Puro Diamond Cut at B&B.
That's a fantastic cigar. Too.
I just had my first one like 4 days ago. Like, wow. Absolutely amazing. But the cool thing about that is that means that Glenfiddich will show up with about 5 different year statements of whiskey.
This is not a bad thing.
I'm pretty sure that if I get Glenfiddich to show up, that means Balvenie will show up.
That's what we're talking about.
Now
So
that's going to be a party. Have you met
Yeah.
those people?
So-
this actually
Mr.
segues
Ringo.
perfectly into my sniffing whiskey story,
Okay.
which you will not be able to do at B&B Butchers on October 10th.
Because it will not be TABC certified.
No, so I'm in Dufton, home of Glenfiddich and Balvenie, and I go on this tour and we visit like 11 distilleries in like 2 hours, like you do.
Because if you've been to Dufton, they're all like you just walk.
Yeah,
and
so-
they're just distillery after distillery.
So I asked my tour guide, I'm like, where should we go for dinner? She's like, oh, you got to go to the Stewart Arms. It's the best pub in town. And Dufton's like the size of the room that we're in, so it's not a very
Highlander
big-
Inn.
It's not, no, that's in Craigellachie. That's not in Dufton.
Craigellachie.
Craigellachie. And
That's the one Scottish.
so I get in, and the first thing I see is like over 250 malt whiskeys, and I'm like, yes, I'm listening. And so I asked to see their whiskey list, and the bartender comes over, he drops it off. We're at a table. He's like, here you go. He's like, we just had a whiskey festival, so we might be out of some things. Feel free to come up to the bar and make sure we have what you're looking for. I'm like, well, that's perfectly reasonable,
Of
like
course.
hospitality. Like, I appreciate that. So I'm standing at the bar, just like looking, and like my jaw is on the floor because it's an amazing selection. And he sees me, he's like, oh no, mate, come on back, come on back. I'm like, what did you just say to me? He's like, oh no, come on back. And he goes, you know, feel free to pick up the bottle, pull the cork, have a nose. He's like, the price of each whiskey is on the bottom of the bottle. So I'm picking up like 1964 casks of Balvenie and just being like, oh yeah, this smells really good, and it's 200 pounds, so I'm not going to drink that. And like they're literally working around me, so I like finally order some like festival only Isle of Jura, and it's fantastic. And I look at him, I go, where I come from, you would get your ass kicked stepping behind another man's bar. And he looks straight at
Stay
me.
out from behind my bar.
He looks straight at me. He goes, oh, it's not a problem until you start drinking the whiskey.
I'm trying to figure out when the guy became Irish.
And I think about it, and I'm like,
Oh, Seamus.
it's all the same. But he looks at me, and
I'm incredibly sorry to the entire United Kingdom for what Chris just said.
Sorry, Chris Hart.
but yeah, he told me it's not a problem until you start drinking the whiskey. And I think about it, I'm like, truer words have never been spoken.
That's absolutely right.
That's
That's
awesome.
absolutely right. Okay, so what I'd really like to do is wrap this segment really quick and come back for a final segment where we talk brandy, because I know you wanted to talk brandy
Very
with
much.
Chris Hart.
Dude, Chris and myself, I want to talk brandy, and I want to talk about the way allocations are affecting the American
Yeah, we
whiskey
want to have an
market.
industry argument.
Okay,
kinda
good.
thing.
So
Down?
let's do that. Plus, yeah.
yeah.
Plus
Mark.
Mark
And
Nichols
Mark's here.
Mark Nichols.
returns.
He hasn't
Mark-
shotgunned a beer
if
yet.
you need
Yeah.
to
I
put
was about to
whiskey,
say, well, Mark has
this
been
man
involved.
a
How
beer.
many Houston how many Houston breweries for? Goliad.
In the mic.
Yeah,
In the
use
mic.
your mic, Mark.
Goliad and New Republic
New
were my
Republic,
last.
yeah.
if you need to
so-
put whiskey on draft,
But-
we have
but
the
this
guy
guy-
for you.
Oh,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but
That's all we're saying.
I have
But this
done
guy, like, no,
Plus-
he's
whiskey
kombucha, like
cocktails.
anything that can be
Absolutely.
All
fermented
this is
and
descended
put in a
into
keg and
madness.
poured to you, this guy's going to talk about. It's
Plus-
awesome.
Plus, in the final segment, we'll be challenging Mark to shotgun an idolatrous IPA from Stone while these guys are talking brandy or arguing about the industry.
Are there two of those? Going to shotgun one of them?
Oh,
Do I have
Are there
The
three?
funnel for his butt.
Sir, we are
Do I have
in
no
such good
racers?
shape for you. We'll be back with the final segment of
This
Smokin'
is
and
gonna
Toastin'
be
100.
Oh man.
Centenario!
As Ian just said, descending into madness. We'll be right back. Moo Moo, great. Welcome back, my friends. It's our final segment of the 100th show. I do want to
Debatably the final segment.
recognize. What's that?
Debatably the final
Debatably
segment.
the final segment. Yes. I do want to recognize a couple of people. John Whiteside from our engineering group at RFC Media and Sweet Radio, who helped to put all the equipment together to make sure we got video for this, and it was terrific. And our producer Adam on the Wheels of Steel, who just informed me we are at about 2 hours and 40 minutes on the show. So
That's Joe Rogan level. I love
this
it.
Is, yeah, this is.
We're
Yeah,
going
but
to
what-
hit
but what were the
4
other
hours.
segments?
Yeah.
4 hours.
No,
We're going to go
no.
4 hours.
So
Although
fun
with Joe
times.
Rogan, we're not really bow hunting or any of that.
And I want to also do huge thanks to all of our guests, to everybody. Some of our guests have already had to depart. We just appreciate everybody for being on the show. We sent out invites to everyone who had been a guest on the show. Obviously, not everyone was available, but we had such a great group here. This has been an absolute blast. So we have some unfinished business, and I believe it starts with passing a Stone Idolatrous IPA over to Mark Nichols. And a couple of other people requested one, so we'll pass those down as well. And we were going to taste this on the show,
Should I
but
stand up and move?
we're going to.
It's over there. You're gonna
Yeah.
have to.
No, I got mine. I'm good.
So this is This is how it works. Well, and
You gonna
the
shotgun that?
origin of this was apparently when Mark was on the show early, he wondered what it would be like to shotgun a beer just while Ian and I were talking, but didn't do it. And when he was on show number 99, that's exactly what he did.
He did it
and it
randomly,
was
too.
one of the better moments of the show, quite frankly.
Well, it was hilarious because, like, you know, in the first segment of our show, we don't talk about our guests. We talk about who's coming on and blah blah blah. But since we're video, you can see that our guest is actually just sitting there, and he was thinking to himself, "Well, if I just sat here and shotgunned a beer in the background, that would be hilarious." And so he did.
I've never actually seen a shotgun in real life before, so I'm excited about seeing 3 in a row.
Chris, did you want one of these? I do have
No,
one
no,
more.
no.
Okay.
I've got limited room, and I want to put brandy in it. So
Yeah,
let's.
all right, yeah. we got-
Goodbye, sober world.
Yes. Goodbye, sobriety. We will see you guys later.
So
I'm
what
about
do you
to
do?
have
Do you-
beer
do you-
all over
Yeah.
me, sir. You
Portions-
actually did
portions
that
of
a
the
little
show-
upside down.
Portions
Do
of
you
the show
pop
were brought to you by
You
Uber.
pop it for so it goes. Ready, set, go. And I promise you,
And
officer,
Chris
it wasn't
just
me.
showered in
Yes.
IPA right there.
Wow. Now,
There are
that
worse ways to go.
That had to be a fairly interesting beer to shotgun because that's Stone's limited release.
It's pretty pretty.
Also,
just
how did
came
you
out.
finish
I
that
definitely
so
can
fast?
smell
Did
it
you
from
even
here on
process
Chris's
that?
jacket.
I'm glad. Chris's jacket, by the way,
Very
not a
aromatic.
jacket, but a beautiful bib for the evening.
Oh,
All
I
right.
am no stranger to drinking beers degenerately. The first time I ever had Pliny the Elder, we tasted it and then we put it in shambongs.
Yeah, well,
and then went to town.
I just
What's
want
a
to
bong?
point out the
Water- we
arrogance
put it
of the
in
man who said
beer
the
water
first
pipes.
time I had
First
Pliny
time I
the
had
Elder.
Pliny the Elder.
Yeah. We managed to get a bottle of it for last week's show, thanks to Ian, but unfortunately it was a little post-peak. We still liked it, but it wasn't as good
Yeah,
as
so
the
anybody
fresh.
out there who has peak Pliny the Elder, please let us know.
We have St. Arnold Oktoberfest to trade, and believe me,
That's good
it's a
beer.
good beer. Yeah. So, all right, Mark, thoughts?
I do. I wanted to say thank you for last week. Unbelievable response. I've gotten several phone calls. Lots of people called, tell me they watched the show, asked me to come in and evaluate their draft systems, and
So
A little
yeah.
back system here. Mark owns a company called Quality Draft, and he comes in and makes your draft lines awesome. I'm going to let him take it from there.
I do. I mean, that's the intent. I've studied draft systems going back 22 years in different models, from being with distributors to independent research, and
You will also install draft systems.
I do installations and upgrades, repairs, glycol chiller service, and I've also studied variants such as cocktails, liquor.
So that's my question to you. So at B&B, I about a year ago eliminated my draft beers,
Okay.
and I switched completely to draft cocktails. So I have 6 draft cocktails at B&B.
Okay.
I've learned through some homework and some advice and trial and error, like obviously like things like, if you're building the draft in the keg, like everything cold.
Mm-hmm.
But for someone like myself who has 6 draft cocktails, like what I guess before I go into like what I think of draft cocktails, like how are they beneficial? Like what do they?
Well, the biggest way they're beneficial is speed of service. I mean,
Absolutely.
you get your most signature drinks. You go from a 30-second to a minute per order down to 5 seconds with garnish. So it can incredibly speed service for your bartender, make the bar a lot more efficient. 2, the visibility. You got your signature cocktails on tap. The consumer is going to be more aware of it and more likely to order it. Those are the 2 primary.
Both of which have benefited me greatly.
So one of the
reasons
biggest
to-
things I had doing cocktails on draft, and maybe you can talk about it, is how important it is to keep those lines sparkling clean.
Well, line is actually a really, really big deal. Painfully to say, a lot of people who don't do the research are going to use beer parts for cocktails. And in discussion with the manufacturers of these parts, they're like, yeah, our parts are only rated for 13% ABV or below. But, since beer rarely crosses that, it's just not common knowledge.
Sure.
Except
So
for that
there's-
Eureka Heights we had earlier, which was like what
12.8 or something.
okay.
That beer was
It was close.
freaking
Except for
fantastic.
beers I like.
That was the most delicious mud I've ever drank.
So I've definitely put higher than 13% cocktails on
Yeah.
a draft system. Like, what changes
Yeah, if you've got
when
a
we're doing that?
Well, the standard beer line that's used is a polyvinyl, and it will actually degradate under that high alcohol.
And by the way, this is totally a shameless me asking you to come look at my B&B cocktail line.
Well,
Just so you know.
let me
I mean,
When
throw
we
some
get done
bacon
with
in,
this
and I'll
segment,
be
I'm gonna
there.
be like, give me your business card and come by. Like,
Well, let me just point out, Mark mentioned this earlier, that after being on the show last week, that he had inquiries and picking up business, and I just want to say, smoking and toasting, impacting sales
Oh, yeah.
once again.
making people's lives better.
That's right. That's what
But
we do.
the reason
That's
I
what we're all
ask
about.
is so obviously, like, all of mine are like heavy proof cocktails,
Okay.
and so
No.
Really?
shocking. But,
Surely you
but
jest.
one of the things that I kind of so the way this all started was at the very beginning of this process of switching everything was I met I don't know if you Adrian Verdine in Dallas. He owns a company called Bar Draft, and
Okay.
so they created. I was at the San Antonio Cocktail Conference, and I went to a seminar about draft cocktails. I'm like, shit. At the time, I only had two. I had basically what we call the Washington Mule, which is a Moscow Mule,
Uh-huh.
and I had a lavender-infused gin and tonic. And then I sort of evolved those two taps, and then when I got to the point where the owner and myself were like, dude, beer here, it's a steakhouse.
Yeah.
I'd rather have fresh, amazing, bottled, canned beers than draft that maybe this draft hasn't been used in 3 days because you're drinking the one craft draft I have.
Yeah, like what
So,
like what
let's get rid
challenges
of it.
do you face putting a 6% IPA on draft as opposed to doing, a cocktail which after dilution is maybe 17, 18%? What kind of challenges are we talking
Even with
there?
dilution,
Yeah.
some of mine are like 34.
Yeah, well, the challenges
degenerate.
are, are
Why I
going to
love going to
Steakhouse.
B&B.
the biggest challenge is going to come down to the recipe. I mean, do you want fresh ingredients, or do you want, to add the mixers afterwards and just have the liquor?
And that's one thing that I learned from Adrian and Nico Martini was that kind
Shout
of
out to
exact
Nico.
same. Yeah, dude, I love Nico and I love Adrian, but more what I'm getting at is as someone that's just directly pumping like foolproof alcohol through the tap lines
Uh-huh.
constantly. And when I say constantly, like I don't know if you've been to B&B, but when they ask me when's a good slow night to come in, we're closed on Memorial Day and Christmas Day, and those are the only slow days we have. So my
can attest
question
to
is,
that.
That place is amazing.
When you're rocking through the volume that I rock through of keg cocktails,
Uh-huh.
what's like? Because for me, like I run into issues constantly, and I call AC Johnson and whatever. But like my thing is, when you're making the keg cocktail and the end product, like where is that? Is there a balance? Like, okay, don't use fresh fruit juice, use frozen or whatever. Because they told me cool everything.
Yeah, no, it is, but you have to care and maintain it. Care for and maintain it. If you want to use fresh, you need to go through everything you make in less than 48 hours. Also, you need to either manually rouse on a regular basis or put a system in that will rouse
That's my
and
question.
allow.
How do I clean
They're
it?
officially
How do you
above my
clean
head.
it? Well,
Bleach.
you're gonna wanna look at the specific ingredients that you're needing to clean and find an appropriate cleaner for that. You might actually use a wine
Fabuloso.
cleaner. You might use acidic, or you might use a alkaline type. Just depends on a lot of
What
a lot
I'm
of the-
pumping through the
yeah,
lines.
what
Yeah.
what you need to remove.
So
I'm assuming that you and I are going to just have a conversation pretty soon.
We'll
And
have
you're
a,
gonna help me.
we'll have a blast.
Oh, yeah, and I know it's a big point of contention in the craft cocktail scene, and something that's been discussed literally like ad nauseum, and I use that word in the like purest sense possible. 'Cause I'm tired about reading about it. But do you find a difference in like fresh juice against, say, like a clarified juice? Like, is that making really that much of a difference coming through those lines?
Only really after a time, a certain time period. I find that fresh has about a 48-hour window where it's going to start to turn and alter in flavor.
When you say fresh goes through the lines or fresh in the keg?
Well, fresh goes in are all fruit based versus like the other types of juice.
But if let's say like I want to alter my recipe in the keg to use roses instead of fresh with simple syrup, only for a draft cocktail.
Yeah.
Does that change things?
Not really.
Okay. That's perfect.
It doesn't. If you're using, the one thing is if you're gonna put like ginger or some kind of something that can clog, the system up, then there's other steps you'll need to take in order to keep it steeped and prevent it from clogging.
Drano clears clogs. Just
I find.
I just want to say, Mark Nichols,
hot bags.
if you have any draft cocktails, like I'm about to ask you to come consult
he
for
is
me.
the man. That's the thing. That's why we have him on
I'm
the
just
show.
telling
This
you,
episode of
Mark
When You
Nichols
Geeks
is about
Unite
to come to
has
B&B
been brought
and
to you
help
by
me.
Quality Draft.
I have
Yes.
6 draft cocktails.
Well, I just want to
And
say
there are
that
6 of my
yes,
signatures.
I just want to say that this has been one of the most geeked out segments ever, and I'm so thrilled that we got to host it on Smoking and Toasting because it was just absolutely
been
awesome.
translating over
Just
the
wait
wall.
till we get into
It is
Frank's
all
tequila
downhill
and our
from here.
Oh,
brand.
yes, absolutely. But
no.
but
I think it's
this is
actually
why.
all going to be like a line item from here.
Line item. That's a pun.
Okay,
But I'm
just
ching.
looking, you people
But
that
I'm
are on
ching.
Facebook looking at the camera can't see this, but I think you have like the actual. It's about to get real nerdy.
No,
So we're gonna go.
I think it's really important because there's a lot of people that are moving towards draft cocktails for that. Just like we talked about, speed of service. It can be.
Well,
it's not just speed of
here's,
service.
here's a thought
Like,
to consider.
here's the
okay?
thing, it's
Hold on.
consistency.
Here's a
Yeah.
thought to consider. You want consistent draft cocktails, and for the listener out there, every draft cocktail that goes in your glass, your lips are basically touching every part of that line. You want it to be squeaky clean.
All right, so
Yes.
let me ask, like, if you walk into a bar that has draft cocktails, and I think we all agree there are some that do it 100% the right way. There are some that do it
As
just
an
to speed up their
afterthought,
service and
yeah.
kind of make money. What kind of things are you looking for when you walk into an account? What for the consumer at home is going to signify somebody that's doing
Somebody's
it the right
doing it
way?
right. Yeah.
No barflies.
Yeah, there.
Number one.
It's going to
Except me.
Everyone
Without
sitting
them-
around this table is a barfly.
Yeah, without the one telltale sign, I guess, for a consumer will be if they can see like brassware marks on the faucet, because other than that, everything else is going to be concealed, and they're going to know that they're using a metal that's reacting to an element of that cocktail.
But you may be able to tell in the flavor and the taste of the cocktail.
You can probably tell. Depends on how strong the flavors are. A lot of times it'll be in the undertones, how developed their palate is. There's all kinds of variables. But
Yeah, if you're having a Manhattan off a draft and you taste a little banana undertones, something might be a little bit weird.
Yeah, banana should not be one of the undertones.
Now, see, this is why.
I don't have a Manhattan on draft, but I 1,000% have a Balvenie highball.
Yeah.
Balvenie 12, which
Well,
I will tell you at the end of this year it will probably change, but right now it's the 25th anniversary of Balvenie Doublewood.
Oh, so good.
What kind of gas are you using to press it?
It's CO2.
Just the hot air coming out of Jeremiah.
Can I take a second to mention
No,
how
you're
really
picking up-
great Ben
Hence
Riach
we'll
10
talk.
highballs
So it's slightly carbonating.
Hence we'll talk.
Well, if you're going to
Yeah.
go there, Chris, I'll take a Toki highball.
Yeah.
That's what I was
all
trying to
day.
tell you.
So-
Like, I have 6 draft cocktails.
Let's just make a highball flight over there.
You and I are about to have a conversation off mic.
4 or 5 different
That
ones.
will be amazing.
Hold
and
on,
off
Chris.
mic, it'll be even geekier than this one was, which is
Before we-
awesome.
Oh, way geekier.
Before
I
we get
assure
any
you.
further, and we may or may not even talk about this, can I try that 15 that you have over there?
The what?
The what?
You have a 15 over here, right?
No.
No.
I don't know what's
What
happening.
did you
What?
bring?
I have an 18 and a 21.
Oh, well, let me try the 21.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, 21.
I'm
We're
drinking
going there.
Blanco
Now we're
tequila
getting
right
to the
now
point
from
where we
El
can
Zorro.
try
So,
stuff.
Yes.
happy over here.
Well, I just want to say this is why Mark Nichols and Chris Hart are tied for most appearances on the show
I'm gonna
because
go back and look.
these are-
I I think I got a leg up on you. We'll see. I'm gonna go back and count.
All right.
I'm gonna recount it like it's 2001. I want
I think I might have the most
I wanna
repeat.
recount.
Yeah, but how
episodes.
many places have you represented?
Yeah, Mark wins on that one for sure.
Fair enough.
Mark
I
wins on that
legitimately
one.
heard about the show
Goliath.
through Jeremiah. 'Cause,
Yeah.
his first appearance, he sends me like a message on Facebook. He's like, "Dude, I totally shouted you out." And I listened to the
Well,
episode,
and
and
I
he
was
totally didn't.
But I was like, no, dude, this show is going to become very.
He lied.
No, I did.
All right. So
I listened to that episode on the way to Italy. You didn't say shit.
so
You
we
guys did the wrong episode.
I
so
still
Frank,
love
you brought something for us to taste. And by the way,
Sure did.
while during the discussion about
About multiple Franks.
yes, well no during the last
No,
discussion
about your lines.
about your
Oh,
lunch,
yes.
Ian passed around some. We had one can left of this Stone
Oh, that we shotgunned.
Idolatrous
Now you can taste
IPA,
it.
which is a limited release, 7%
Yeah,
from
I
Stone.
100%.
And oh
No
my,
one said
this
it was
is good.
7% before I shotgunned.
Oh my, this is good. Well,
Hey.
it's Stone for Stone 7%. That's
pretty low
that's-
on Stone.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I
Stone
was gonna
Light.
say that's cool.
That's Stone
You
Light.
can shotgun it.
That's
It's okay.
that's their light IPA.
So, but boy, is that a good
190
IPA.
years old.
That's
You know what?
delicious.
196.
I love
IBUs.
Stone. Stone manages to do an IPA, and I'm not even the biggest fan of IPAs. Like, not my favorite kind of beer. Stone manages to do IPAs so balanced and so wonderful, no matter what they do. Even when they do something ridiculously hoppy, it's balanced and awesome. And I'm always impressed by their beers.
All right, so Frank, where are we going next?
We can go wherever you guys
Going
want.
to Mexico,
Well,
bro.
no, you brought something you want. You brought something along you wanted us to taste.
I brought the line of El
We
Tesoro,
could go wherever
which
you
we
like.
had at the Whiskey Social. I
Yes.
think you guys may have had a chance to try it.
We had the cocktails.
You had the cocktails.
Yes.
You haven't had the tequila yet.
No, not yet. Not
Well,
not
you
tried
guys
it
feel
myself.
free to grab whatever you want from here to the end of the show. But most importantly, to celebrate y'all's 100th episode, I actually brought a bottle that is rarely seen, and I kind of want to celebrate you guys as
That's what we'd love to
new
try.
friends and
the
kind
70th
of a new
anniversary.
adventure for me. I've never done.
Yes, sir.
podcast or
Would you
shows
pass
before.
that down when you get a
So
moment?
I love to pour.
I'm
you guys
a little
some San
offended.
right.
I'm a little offended he did your show before he did mine.
Well,
I've
you
been
know-
trying to get him on for a month.
Chris, we'll
your
wrestle.
show?
We'll wrestle about this for a long time.
Yeah. Apparently he wanted to be on a show that actually gets watched. So
Hey,
I
man,
understand
hey, man,
completely.
I haven't been on
I
your
get his
show.
feelings. Yeah.
Hey, a lot of your shows get watched. You can't judge just by the episode I was on.
I've never been invited to your show.
Yeah. Well,
I haven't met you yet. I'm excited. The one thing I was looking forward to. The
So,
only
so
thing-
Jeremiah, you got to pick up your mic, buddy.
These are
I'm ready.
But
Hand him his mic.
Jesus,
Yeah.
If you
So
come on my show, you got to bring the pork belly though. I need to.
I'll bring whatever you want from B&B.
so
I will bring
what?
you lamb
So what exactly
belly.
are we tasting here, Frank?
Lamb
down.
belly.
So the El Tesoro 70th anniversary is a 7-year-old extra añejo that's been aged in
A 7-year-old.
ex-bourbon cask. Yeah, so it's
Nice.
7-year-old. One thing you guys will notice from what you guys had earlier is definitely going to be the color. So don't be surprised if this one is a little lighter than what y'all had earlier.
It's almost. I'm looking at it in the bottle. It's almost like has a little green brown to
70th
it.
anniversary, 7-year-old extra añejo.
Okay.
So Houston said something pretty smart earlier when I was driving up here from Friendswood. I heard him say to be weary of colors and brands that may hide the agave flavor profile that you want to look for. And I feel like this one, for being as old as it is, you still get a lot of agave
You can
influences on it as
smell
well.
the agave right off
And
the top of
beautiful
this
thing
big
about
time.
it is that at El Tesoro, Carlos is reusing these barrels over and over again. So a lot of times what you get is a lighter color, obviously, as you can tell.
Like a bubble gum
Like-
quality.
So-
What's that sweetness?
I haven't
to it?
tried this
You
yet,
don't
but
get
this
the influence from the barrels.
bubble.
It's not
Did you say
cognac.
bubble gum? Yeah, there's some of that. This has a sweetness. This smells amazing, and it smells like a classic tequila, but more complex.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But there's another thing that I overheard earlier driving up here as well is that a big shout out to Patron and thank you for them to creating the premium category. And good on them because they had a great program, a great marketing just push. I used to work for a company and I heard stories of how they went to market back and they did a great job, pushing that tequila. But in reality, if you're going to look at the history of tequilas and you reach out to a guy named Robert Denton up in Detroit, he'll tell you straight up that the first 3 tequilas that were imported into the U.S. at 100% agave back in the late 70s, early 80s was El Tesoro, Chinaco, and Herradura.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as your first 100% agave premium tequilas go, El Tesoro, Chinaco, and Herradura were leading the pack. And then everyone else came later on, right in the early 90s when the big agave, 100% agave
Sure, that
boom happened.
when that became important.
Yes, exactly.
So-
So,
so-
if you go to Mexico nowadays, most nationals, most locals are drinking mixtos. They don't care. So that's a thing that I kind of drive home
It's
as
the
well
most
as that,
unique.
you know, for me, I drink it all, but you definitely will look for some quality. There are some pretty decent mixtos out there.
Okay, so-
but yeah, stick to 100% agave. They're
So
The vanilla and pepper in this, and the agave right up front, make this an amazing tequila. Like, this is fantastic.
So,
It
so
really
for
is.
those that are like actual like tequila nerds, let's go ahead and address like the elephant in the room. Like, let's talk about diffusers and diffuser
Why are you
production.
looking at me?
I'm right here. I'm afraid.
I 100% for full disclosure. I don't know Tesoro's production methods. I don't know
So,
nek about the brand.
I will
I've
tell
drank
you-
it a bunch over the years. It's fantastic.
So for to start off with, the 3 methods that you can make tequila with, or you can cook with, is obviously going to be the most traditional method, which is going to be your stone or clay ovens, and then you go to the process of the milling of the agave itself, which you can do with either Tahona stone wheel, or you can do it with a roller mill, which is basically a shredder with steel rollers, I guess you can call. But there's a third way that you can make tequila, and there's a lot of arguments in the industry right now as far as what is better than the other. But in all reality, the diffuser basically takes an agave and it strips 100% of those agave sugars present in it. A Tahona will do about 89-90%, and a roller mill will do about 94 or 95% of the sugars. And the argument there is going to be that by using a diffuser, you're actually pulling out the unwanted sugars, or maybe some bitter elements of the plant itself, especially if you don't remove a part of the plant called the cogollo. But you know, it's everybody's preference. I'm not here to knock on brands. I'm not here to knock on production methods, because certainly I represent some brands that may be using some alternate methods.
Which
as
is
well.
also one of the
But
awesome
for-
things about your brands. Is that
I mean,
y'all
for full
support
disclosure,
everyone.
one of the reasons that I ask, one of the brands that's within my portfolio, Tequila Herradura, was one of the early adapters of diffuser technology. So
They were.
I really just want this from sort of an
They were.
aficionado. Like, you know, when I met Frank, like, he came into my bar, like, just peddling agave. That's what he did. He became agave Frank before he was whiskey Frank.
Well, before that,
I
actually was
when he
whiskey
got it, when he
Frank.
got his new position. I literally said,
Well, I
"That's
thought his
fantastic."
new position
but
was
agave
luxury
sales across
specialist.
Texas just like
He's a
flatlined
specialist in
70%
luxury.
because Frank went to whiskey.
Well,
like, you will not find somebody more knowledgeable in agave than
Thank you.
Frank Fernandez.
Well, Frank,
I
I would
appreciate that. I mean, I started off as a whiskey nerd over at Reserve 101 back in the days when we were pouring whiskey and pairing it up with beers. We weren't even in the cocktail scenes about 10, 11 years ago when I was behind the bar at Mike. Went over to Republic and became the agave specialist over there for about 3.5 years. And it's been great, but it's also nice to come back to the world where I represent all types of spirits.
Right.
So, yes, I represent El Tesoro, but I also represent, you know, brands such as Maker's Mark, Jim Beam, Nom Creek as well. So, but for this brand right here, Chris, since you
Lafroig.
don't know much about it,
Hashtag I like
will tell
Lafroig.
you one thing that's pretty cool about our brand right now is that we're riding the wave of success. Carlos Camarena just won Producer of the Year.
Wow.
The Blanco received the gold medal, the Repo, a silver, and Añejo and the Paradiso also received gold as well. The first 3 are going to be the first one's unaged, the Reposado and Añejo aged in ex-bourbon casks. The Paradiso, which is available, is a 5-year-old extra Añejo aged exclusively in cognac casks, not finished all the way through with cognac. And this bad boy, well, this came out 2007, as you can see. Was their anniversary bottle. So the processes for these guys at La Alteña with Carlos Camarena is traditional as can be. He's actually trying to live up to what his grandfather did back in 1937, using a stone oven, Tahona wheel to mash, fermenting in wood tanks, open air with bagasso, which are the fibers as well.
That's awesome.
And he's also distilling with bagasso fibers in the still, which he has 3 stills: his grandfather's, his father's, and his own. And they all have little nuances, whether it be a shape, whether it be a length of the still. They all produce their individual characteristics, and then they blend.
What I think is really important, and sorry to cut you off, and something like I talk about, like ambassadorship at its fundamental level, is like, yes, I work for Brown Forman. My job is to get you to drink Glendronach, Ben Riach, and Glenglassa. But
luckily, it's good stuff.
But these two gentlemen will tell you, there's rarely a single
Don't drink
malt
Glasso.
that I will. Yeah, shut the fuck up, Jeremiah. All right. So what this gentleman will tell you, and this gentleman, because this guy clearly doesn't fit the definition anymore, is like my job, and just like much like Frank's for many years, is my job is to get you to drink single malt whiskey. Frank's was to educate you about agave and the beautiful notes that can be. Like, yes, I sell 3 distilleries out of over 200 as my livelihood. But my first prerogative is get you to drink single malt whiskey. And Frank, over the years, has been the biggest advocate of agave and just drinking quality agave. It doesn't matter who it comes from, because whether it's one of his brands, whether it's one of my brands, one of those will get you hooked.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a
And
tequila
Frank
for
is there
everyone.
once you have those needles in you to really educate you and really get you to obsess over it.
Absolutely.
And Frank is absolutely one of the best in the agave territory.
Thank you.
And I mean, maybe
Should
maybe
we go ahead and just
now in
trade
the
spots?
Maybe now in the
Yeah, because I know I want to sit next to Jeremiah. and I
like
know
maybe
that-
now in the whiskey category, but that's what it comes down to. When people are talking to you about spirits, think about, are they talking to you about that spirit, or are they talking about their brand?
Right.
If they're about their brand, they have
An agenda.
They have an agenda. They have skin in the game. For someone like me, if I
Not
talk
that
to you
there's anything
about,
wrong with that.
if I talk to you about single malt whiskey, I'll talk to you about every
Totally
one
cool.
of those
You gotta
200
promote your
distilleries.
shit. You gotta promote your.
Like
If you're
Frank
gonna-
will
yeah,
happily
I mean-
talk
Get
about
promote
any
your stuff.
agave distillery, any NOM you
I'll
want
drink
to
about
talk
them all because
and
at
he'll
the end of the
educate
day,
you and he'll make you happy to drink
yeah,
it.
at the end of the day, you
And
gotta
when
try them
people
all
talk
to
you
learn
about
about them.
spirits, that's what's most important, is that passion for the
You
category
know,
more than just a
Wait,
single brand.
One of the beautiful things
It
about
is.
this job,
R&D
like
is
from
very
my
important.
position on this job, is I get to get you guys in here and tell me your passion
Right.
on this spirit.
Oh, 100%,
And I get to
100%.
enjoy it. And I love spirits. I love beer. One of the things that got me into this whole industry was Glenlivet. The basic 12-year-old Glenlivet. What a beautiful spirit that is in getting you into, this is a real whiskey and you're going to enjoy it. And then that to me was a breakout to go, okay, well, if this is this good, what else am I going to try? And that's where I went with it. And it took me a lot of years, but I love trying different things. I go in and I try different things. You guys tell me different things. Sometimes you lay product on me, and that's awesome too. I love that part of it. And my liquor cabinet is expansive and huge, and I love that because I can walk in and go, what do I feel like tonight? And it's
Right.
not 1 or 2 bottles. It's 45, 50 bottles, and I get to try something. Every night I get to try something different. And I love that whole process of having a wonderful different whiskey or spirit or
Yeah, and
tequila.
that's what it
It's
comes
wonderful.
down to. Like, we're here to promote the love of spirits.
Absolutely.
We all
Aquavit.
happen to work for very different brands. Like
Aquavit.
Well,
like Jeremiah has relationships with different brands than I do. I work for a different brand than Frank.
absolutely.
But if we sit down and we're talking about, say Ben Riach versus Glengarry versus Auchentoshan, which are 2 of his brands, I'm the first one to tell you those taste amazing. They're different, but they're different for very different reasons. And our job is to get you to love these category of spirits and not necessarily like these single bottles. And I
Yes.
think that's an important part of anybody's sort of spirits journey.
Well, one of the biggest things that I've learned in the industry, and it kind of came back to mind when I was in Kentucky a few weeks ago. Bill Samuel said it straight. He said, "Go visit other distilleries while you're here next time in Kentucky, because at the end of the day, you got to taste what everybody's producing and learn different profiles. But in our industry as well, at a flip of a dime or a quarter or nickel, whatever, I could be representing Patron tomorrow. You never want to talk bad about brands. You just want to go ahead and just say, let's educate you on the category itself.
Well,
and also, you can't have a bias because my palate's not like yours.
Well, and
So who's
and-
to say that you would have liked El
Sure.
Tesoro just because I'm talking how great, about how
As
great
an
it is.
on-premise
But-
guy, that's exactly what I prefer.
Absolutely,
Like,
you just gotta be honest.
I want my guy to know like the category.
Absolutely.
Like it doesn't necessarily matter the brand. Like you know, like you and I both know that like there's been plenty of guys that have come into B&B for this brand, and then a month later they're coming in for another brand.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I don't necessarily care about your brand.
Well, and also a lot of guys come into your account and they say this brand is great, and then a month later they represent another brand.
Yeah, exactly. Like the thing that I tell people, like we do a peated whiskey with Benriach 10 Curiositas, which you don't have here today.
Unbelievable, amazing,
yeah,
fantastic.
it's unbelievable. It's
Curiositas.
amazing, but it's different, and that's what I always tell people. Particularly in single malt whiskey, nothing's better than another whiskey. They're different.
Right.
Is my
That's not true.
Is my Benriach 10 better than Lafroig 10, which is one of Frank's brands? No, but they're different. You enjoy them in very different ways, and I think that's very important. It's just embracing the category, embracing single malt Scotch.
I'm going to bring this around full circle. That's why the whiskey sniff is important, because sometimes
That's right.
I see what
smells
you did
good,
there.
And sometimes
right.
that one smells good.
I'm going to
Which will be hosted at B&B Butchers.
I think that there's nothing wrong with saying that something is not your bag. While at the same time, I will say the Benriach 10 and the Lafroig 10 are actually two completely different spirits. But there are plenty. Let's say you're not a certain Isla fan, whether it's Bunnahabhain or Bruichladdich versus whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with necessarily saying that you're not a fan of something.
Well, no, that's fine. But think about how many people come out and they literally say like, Lagavulin is better than Lafroig.
Yeah, those people are silly.
Yeah.
That's
No, no,
any
no.
definitive statement that's based off opinion is silly.
And anybody that works for a brand will tell you, like, it's not better, it's different.
That definitive statement sounds fascist to me.
As a person just sitting at a bar sometimes and ordering a whiskey, there's sometimes that guy next to you that goes, "Oh, I don't believe you'd put a piece of ice in that whiskey. You're just totally ruining it."
Oh,
no, I'm not. I'm enjoying it the way I want to enjoy it.
Oh,
well,
me and Jeremiah would tell you a story of when we were at Radio Milano, and one of our cocktails literally had Glenfiddich 18
Hadrian's
year in
Wall,
it.
18-year
Hadrian's
single
Wall.
malt, Glenfiddich.
It's Glenfiddich 18-year, blackberry and fig shrub, little bit of lime juice, little bit of lime bitter, stirred with a nutmeg rim. And I had so many
Sounds
people.
like a Christmas drink.
I had a ton of people
does.
from.
Yeah, but what are
I
you
had
doing?
people
You're not
walk
gonna
into
make a
that bar
drink
from
with
Scotland and be like,
Glenfiddich 18.
"My grandfather would roll over in his
Well,
grave
your grandfather would drink this drink and be
rather
happy.
than drink this," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"That's great."
But you know what the
Give me
truth is?
$20 and drink it.
All right. I'm gonna wrap this whole thing up. Drink it the way you like it. It's
Exactly.
beautiful.
Exactly.
And if I could just say this, we are the world. We are the children.
Well, a prime example of that.
Why did you deliver that like Captain
Yeah,
Kirk?
maybe I did.
Even at B&B,
Totally Captain
let's say
Kirkish.
you
Totally
order,
Captain
like,
Kirkish.
obviously we have like an exceptional selection of very heavily aged whiskeys.
No doubt.
Like I have
little.
Glenfiddich from its 12 year to its 50 year. I have Balvenie from its 12 year to its 50 year. But there are certain ones that speak to people.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like for me, like I love the one that everyone hates. It's a 15-year single barrel Balvenie sherry cask. A lot of people are like it's too bitter.
I have
it's
that
too
on my
aggressive.
shelf, and I love it.
It is my
For me,
favorite.
it's the Glenfiddich 15-year,
Yeah.
the Solera
Yeah.
Reserve.
The Solera
Every
cask.
time I have that, I'm offended at how good that whiskey is.
Oh, the Solera?
It's ridiculous
Yeah,
how good that
absolutely.
It's
whiskey is.
amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
But
I agree.
but my
It's a good
thing
one.
is, if you're into spirits, like,
And the
right,
Tesoro
like his
7th
spirit.
Anniversario is amazing.
We are the ones that make a
That's
brighter
right.
day. So let's start
Thank you,
living.
Chris Morris.
He just keeps going with it. He's not letting us go.
This is a perfect place. I know there was more we wanted to do, more we wanted to talk about, but
Can
I
we
feel
talk
like
about brandy?
this is a perfect place to wrap the show. Can we talk about brandy off the show?
Please.
No, we
Sure.
100%.
I'm gonna let
Okay.
Chris start with the Armagnacs. and
We'll do it.
then-
We'll do it off the show. He's
We'll
wrapping
do it.
up.
We'll do
Yeah,
it
I'm
off
excited
the
for
show.
that.
We're on hour 17.
Yes, hour 17, and
This is episode 95. Like clearly,
You
this
can
is-
split this
So,
up into a 6-part
with-
episode.
with props to Joe Rogan, the long podcast master. We want to say thank you so much to everybody who was a part of
This
this.
has been the best show.
This has been the best show
Incredible.
ever.
I've been
And-
telling you for a long time that a long format rant of us sitting
telling
on a
you.
table.
No, you're
it's
so right.
100% the best.
It's the best thing. No one will watch
so
it,
right.
but we'll enjoy the hell out
Really
of it.
just-
We should just keep doing that.
two
I'm
things-
pleased by the Balmorhea from Garrison Brothers just because of its direct connection.
When does it hit?
to it's actually available in specs, Class B's, Total Wine Spirits. all that.
The common folk don't know what Class B's mean.
So you can buy this at Specs. You can buy it at Total Wine and Spirits, but the Balmorhea please buy this. It absolutely directly affects a very, very close to Texas thing.
Awesome.
And Glendronach affects my rent, so buy that.
Right.
And El Tesoro.
Also,
Also
it's
Texas.
delicious.
Anything Beam
It's a friend
Suntory,
over here.
guys. I got a daughter to pay for.
Yeah, I was about to say, Dan Garrison told me to give you this check real quick.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. I'll see you
So I
tomorrow.
want to tell you two things. Whiskey Sniff, October 10th.
October.
B&B.
More details are coming, and it's going to be the first and most amazing event.
First of many.
For Smoking and Toasting. And then the second thing I want to tell you is that now that we are past our landmark 100th show, and by landmark I mean really, really long, what we are excited to announce will be debuting soon in the next few weeks on Smoking and Toasting is a brand new, and it's in a segment that we're really proud of and very, very excited to tell you about. It's called Puppet Smoking Cigars, and that will be coming up soon on Smoking and Toasting.
God.
Have a wonderful,
Can I say
wonderful week, and I know everybody has something still left, so if not, there's plenty more you can fill from.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Gentlemen,
guys.
cheers, and
Love
thank
you guys so
Yes,
much.
100 episodes. Sponsored by B&B Butchers.
Is it over? I just have a quick question.
Are
we doing
off Facebook?
Are we still on?
We're still on.
I don't want to ask this question on air.
Okay.
I was going to ask what comes after puppets doing cigars. Is it dogs doing coke? What's puppies doing coke?
Dude, my dogs are so down for that.